Mech pilots, online. BattleTech manuals, online. Long-term memory, offline. All systems bungled. Initiating BungleTech podcast.
Hello, MechWarriors. In our first deployment of Season 3 of BungleTech, Michael and I throw some shade as we scientifically and irrefutably determine the most controversial BattleTech opinion in our primary topic segment, before moving on to discuss a minor and common rule mistake we see on the table regarding the minimum range band. Then, in our Stories of the Inner Sphere segment, we read Ace Darwin and the Battle of the Beer Fridge, written by James Bixby. Get ready, MechWarriors, and get those flamers juiced up. It's time to burn some bridges down.
As always, Clan Kodama would like to thank our Loremasters, RetroLazer and MagnumDanger, for their continued support. By your wisdom and your patronage, we are able to divide the foolish inner sphere so that they may collapse upon one another like so many unruly children.
Bonus objective. Extraordinary proclamation. Initiating.
Before we start, I just wanted to give a quick shout out that we are on track to launch the Global Campaign Initiative player booklet come February 27th. Our plan of action is to launch the package then, and then release a mission monthly on the 27th of each month until December. That's 9 initial missions to run with your MechWarrior pals. Get hyped, BattleTech buddies. It's either gonna be great or a bungling mess, but either way, it sure will be a memorable adventure for us all. And now, a quick word from our Khan.
Clan Kodama, as we start a new year, the year of the snake, Steel Viper, may they forever rest in honorable peace. I am excited to introduce a blood-name technician to our ranks. Technician Michael Lynch, it is an honor to have you at our side. As a tribute to your blood name, I am excited to enact a new Clan Kodama policy. We are bringing lynching back as a method to resolve all and any disagreements, no matter how trivial. After all, an ununified pack of Kodama is as good as dead. We are one people, we are one voice, we have one vision. Always remember, Clan strong together!
This is Professor Michael presenting The Sphere We Live In. The existence and nature of non-clone body doubles remains a controversial topic among Sphere OS Int researchers. The earliest high-profile incident of engineered body doubles used adversarially was by the Maskirovka in the abduction of Prince Hans Davian during the Succession Wars. Reportedly, the Special Operations Group used a Capellan citizen who was forced to undergo extensive cosmetic surgeries and gene therapies to alter his appearance. By all accounts, these were extremely effective, and the body double was practically indistinguishable from the subject. Similar techniques are believed to have been evaluated by all major house intelligence services, as well as some private organizations. More controversially, however, the Maskirovka also performed extensive conditioning on the potentially unwilling subject to ensure he would not break from the planned operation. Uncovered research documents from the Sarna Institute archives, dated several years before the project, investigated possible applications of neural interrogation computers in personality suppression and memory insertion, although these papers have since been scrubbed from public access. Partial copies of the research suggest that the subsonic trauma induced by the NIC is able to produce brief periods of subjectivity failure which can be exploited. But further research into this area is limited due to the obvious ethical and moral concerns. Now you know about the sphere we live in.
Primary objective, podcast topic segment, initiating.
Welcome, everybody, to Season 3, Episode 1 of BungleTech, a BattleTech podcast. I'm once again joined by the man who has been with me from the very beginning, the one of infinite patience, understanding, intelligence, and sensuality, Michael. Say hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Michael, you know, we ended last year with a pretty warm feeling, compassionate, lovey-dovey episode.
We, talked about bringing the community together, all of the love and support we've received, how great the community are, everyone we've ever collaborated with and played games with, it really makes you feel something.
Certainly does. Fills me up with rage, Michael.
Absolute disgust.
It broils my panties, buddy. My panties are broiling right now, I tell ya.
Yeah, we took some time. We, really pondered on it, and we're like, this whole, friends, everyone getting along with one another, that's a bunch of baloney is what that is. That's not how the real world works.
That's definitely not how the BattleTech world works in lore. That's for sure. So let's throw some fire into the mix. Let's sow some discord, Michael. What are we going to do today?
We are going to, as scientifically as we always do, we are taking the most controversial BattleTech opinions we could find, distilled them down, and boiled them to just the essence of hatred and division. And we are going to pit these different, absolutely despicable opinions in an arena so that they can fight, and through survival of the fittest, we will arrive at the worst, most divisive, rage-inducing BattleTech opinion we can come up with.
That's right, Michael. We are going to find, scientifically, as Michael says, the most controversial BattleTech opinion in the world from a small sample size. And make it our official stance. You know what? This is going to be the hill that BattleTech decides to, or not BattleTech. Actually, we're going to make it. We're going to make it the hill that BattleTech decides to die on. It's this opinion, and BungleTech's going to go down with it. It's going to be our official slogan going forward. Maybe not our official slogan, but it'll be somewhere official. It'll be documented. This is a controversial opinion. We're committed to it because we did the work.
It's season 1, season 2, we were all about collaborating and building bridges and all that stuff. And where did that get us? A reasonably successful podcast with lots of friends. And season 3, we've decided we're not about that anymore.
Yeah, why do you build bridges? To break them, Maddie. Why do you get friends? To betray them. That's the game we're playing. It is the Canadian way. Backstab, just like the War of 1812.
That's a weird one. I don't even know how many listeners are going to know anything about the War of 1812.
Well, you should know something about it. The treacherous Canadians. That's right. Most of our audience is American. They should know. They should know about the War of 1812. It's we burned the White House. We're treacherous Canadians. I mean, we're British technically, but anyhow, we're treacherous. You can't trust us.
Okay, so Nathan, how exactly is this fight going to work? You've come up with a complicated mechanism here. Explain it to me one more time.
Michael and I both like fighting games. I like fighting games a little bit more. I love playing competitive fighting games. And so I figured what was the best way to friggin' figure out the top BattleTech controversial opinion, and that was to put them in a fighting game bracket. Controversial is defined as giving rise or likely to give rise to public disagreement. And because we are here to determine the most controversial BattleTech opinion in the world from a small sample size of controversial BattleTech opinions, we need to evaluate these as they face off against each other in this fighting game bracket. Single elimination, no second chances, baby. We're going to discuss both their breadth and impact. So how breadth is being evaluated is how many players in the world we think would disagree to this opinion. And then impact is how hard that opinion hits with the people that are disagreeing with it. So for example, you could have a controversial opinion that maybe only one person in your region really would feel, but man, would they feel that hard. They'd just be induced into rage. Or the opposite, you could have everyone in the community would believe it, but it's a minor little annoyance, like a little tweak that frustrates them, but nothing really that they consider a big deal. And whoever scores the highest moves on to the next bracket. And if there's a tie, well, just like in fighting game tournaments, sometimes you don't perform as well as you want to on the battle. We'll do a roll-off, and the highest number of those 2d6s takes the match. How does that sound,
Unless
Michael?
I shout loud enough, and then maybe we can bend the rules.
Well, that would...
Don't start with me, Nathan.
That does align with the theme of today's podcast, so it is inciting to me, or enticing to me. Okay, this bracket, these 32 opinions were submitted by people, some of our patrons, some by Michael and myself, and obviously these are scientifically valid, every single one. No opinions here, baby. This is scientific fact. I guess it has to be opinions because we said controversial opinions. I'll back up. It's not scientific at all. Our process is scientific. Good enough.
I feel like we've come up with some pretty good opinions here. Send us a comment if something we said made you mad, because that means that we win.
All right. This bracket has been randomized. So first we have a controversial opinion coming from technician Matthew Hopper. And that opinion is that the Word of Blake Jamboree, or Jihad, as we also like to call it, is one of the better eras. This is as it upsets the status quo more than any other, and the real reason it gets hated on is because of real-life issues with FASA and the IP, not the plot itself. Ooh.
And it's pitched up against one given by our very own Nathan about prioritizing your advanced technologies in your mechs over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage. Because the advanced rules impact all the players who are playing, but if you bring advanced tech, that's only advantaging the unit using it. So whenever you prioritize bringing in your advanced tech, but you don't want to play with those advanced rules on your table, that encourages you to develop scummy strategies. Did I get that right?
It sounds so much worse when you say it, but I believe it and I wrote it. All right, let's talk about the Word of Blake first. How do we think about this one?
I feel like this is almost a little bit before my time. Like, by the time I got into it, the Jihad era was already mostly in the past, and I feel like people maybe almost warmed up to it a little bit.
I think historically this hits a lot harder, but with lots of new players coming in, I don't think the new players are really feeling the same sentiments. But I think there's so many legacy players in BattleTech. So I think saying that the Jihad is one of the better eras, I personally think that this is going to, light a spark in the eyes of definitely the majority of, like, it's going to be more common than not that this will frustrate someone.
And how many people have their love to play their games in Blakist eras? I don't think that I've met many people that are like, oh yeah, I love to run my Jihad games.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm thinking this is pretty high up there for breadth. So I would say that if 10 is in every player group in the world, you'd have someone that disagrees with this. I would say probably 8 out of 10. So pretty much.
Yeah, I'm with you on 8.
Okay, that's a pretty high score. But in terms of the amount of frustration, the impact it would have,
some people this is going to be more, but I just feel like, I don't know, it's sort of in the past now.
Yeah. I think people are going to be like, it's just your opinion, man. You know, it's just your opinion, dude.
What is this, like a 3?
Yeah, I was actually thinking 3. We're going to put it as a 3.
All right.
There you go.
Great minds.
Great minds. Think the same. Not alike, Michael. Think the same. Exactly the same. All right. Now the one that sounded very mean when you read it. My opinion.
We haven't met that many people who play with a lot of advanced rules. This really feels like it's coming for almost every player of the game. I don't know how many people would be like mad about this, but like, I feel like if you said it the right way, you could make a lot of people mad about this.
I think how you said it and how I wrote it, especially the term scummy strategies.
An advanced technology to the table. If you bring friggin' like reflective armor or something, you are a garbage BattleTech player.
No, scummy.
Unless you are also playing with, I don't know, satellite uplink rules.
Exactly. Scummy's different than garbage, but very subtly. Yeah, so I think that with this, I think that it's more common, and the reason this always comes to my mind is because you see tournaments and events that are run, and they basically are very clear that we don't use advanced rules, but they allow specific advanced tech. And so in that situation, I think, well, those are technically advanced rules. It's just we're classifying them a little bit differently because the book's been split into 2 now, but historically it was all in the same thing, blah, 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 blah. I understand why people want to do that to add depth to the game, but I think that those are you're really picking and choosing viable strategies, and you're really giving advantages to certain builds. So I think that the majority of the people in the world are not going to play with advanced rules, they will play with advanced tech rules. That's where they start because they want to try something cool. So I think most people, I think this will be pretty, like saying this at a table is going to be pretty or the breadth is going to be pretty big where people are going to disagree with it because that's how most people got into the game. I don't think it's going to be as much of the jihad. I think I think maybe this is a 6 in terms of people disagreeing with it, but I think people are going to disagree with it. It's going to frustrate people more because it sort of comes across as a personal attack. I did say scummy strategies
especially
after
if you
all.
are telling it to your opponent across the table.
And you say, you see 3 scummy strategy.
You brought partial wings to the table and you won't even let me uplink to my satellites? What's wrong with you?
Exactly. That's how I feel, Michael. That's how I feel. God.
All right, yeah. So what do we, 6 and 6?
I say 6 and 6. Sure. All right. We have our first comparison. That is a 12 against a 11. Prioritizing advanced
that's closer
tech
than I thought it was.
barely goes through, yeah.
And we're gonna post up a picture of this bracket so you can follow along at home, but make sure you like cover up the right side of the picture so that you don't see any spoilers. Maybe just don't look at it. Listen first. Look at it later.
Listen first.
Forget I said this.
This never happened. Next, we have, actually, my 2 opinions of Michael being pit against each other. Perfect, Michael. I'll read the first. Jump jets make the game too easy. You're supposed to spend 17 turns shuffling around the battlefield getting into position. That's called maneuvering.
Damn straight. And then it's pitched up against another one of mine, which is that mechs should be bad. You know, you get lots of people always buzzing about how, you know, the big stompy robots and the lore and the tabletop all feel great. And the mechs being kind of bad is really important to that. You know, actual technologies have all these like trade-offs, and the machines in this universe need to have those trade-offs too. And if you only pick the good mechs, you're taking all of the color out of the scenario. Pick bad mechs.
Oh, this is hard comparing these two. Okay, let's do it one by one. So jump jets
make the game too easy. I actually think that not many people are going to find this controversial. Because jump jets really do make the game a lot easier. Maybe, too easy, but they do make the game a lot easier. So I sort of feel like the breadth of this one is going to be low.
Yeah, and there's like lots of people that play, OG BattleTech, and they do shuffle around the battlefield at a speed of 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe like a 4 or something.
I was thinking 3.
3? Yeah, I'd accept 3.
Okay. But people love their jump jets.
Yeah, the people with their, 12, 18 partial wing spiders are gonna, they're gonna know that we're talking about them.
They're gonna be frustrated. So I think the people that we are talking about that do get frustrated are gonna be pretty frustrated. They'll feel like, oh, you're insulting my strategy. Like, my list is completely built around jumping mechs, and it requires, different calculations for gunnery skills and all these things. And you don't understand, man. You don't understand. It's harder.
Yeah. Why would you even field light mechs if they couldn't travel so fast that they are imperceptible to the eye?
Exactly. That's the purpose
do you
of being
hate light mechs? Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
light itself is sort of imperceivable. It lets us see things. Well, I don't know how light works, but like light, we don't see light rays, do we? I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now. I think this is a 7. I think this is
7 to the right people.
7 to the right people. Those people are gonna be frustrated.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And on mechs should be bad. I don't know. I feel like this is maybe not like that huge of a thing. Lots of people do love their bad mechs.
Yeah.
Sarna has that great piece. Sean does the bad mechs, and people love reading about them. So not everyone hates bad mechs. I just think that not enough people pick the bad mechs.
The most controversial thing about this to me is making the statement, only picking good mechs takes the color out of BattleTech. And I think most players would agree. I think competitive players wouldn't agree. So it's about like how many people in the community are competitive. So the majority of BattleTech, I think, is not competitive. Most people, even though they played in competitive settings, they're more casual in nature. So I'd probably say that this has a breadth of 4. And I think that the impact on people that hear this, I don't think people are going to be really, because the people that are going to be impacted by this are the people that are competitive, and they're looking at the game from a different perspective. So I think it's not going to really rage them up that much. I think it's going to be max like a 3 or a 4.
Yeah. I think I agree. If you tell a competitive player like, oh, why are you picking good mechs? They'll be like, well, because I'm playing in a tournament. Like, obviously.
That means that jump jets make the game too easy takes the win. To the next heated match. First, we have a opinion from MechWarrior Ed Magilton. Targeting computers should come stock on all sniper mechs. And this is because targeting computers would help ensure the sniper-rolled mechs would be more efficient at their role and expenditure of ammunition and heat.
And this is posted up against an opinion of a technician, Klint, who says that lambs are perfectly fine. They are perfectly fine units which belong on the BattleTech universe, despite the rules being extremely convoluted. They make excellent commando and advanced recon mechs, and having some units who have inspiration from other media sources is fun to see. And RetroLazer also pitches in that lambs make sense as a strategic weapon in the lore, and they're just cool to see.
So let's do the first, which is that targeting computers should become stock on all sniper-based mechs. So for this one, I actually don't think, like, I guess it depends what we mean come stock, right? Because, like, is it free inclusion? Like, can't be free, obviously, so there's some weight in there. and it's going to reduce sort of the viability of what people can hold. But I mean, like having a targeting computer on a sniper-based mech makes complete sense. Its role is to snipe. So you'd think it would have a computer that would help it shoot better. Actually, all mechs should have targeting computers. But for snipers, it makes extra sense. So I don't think
so
that...
I'm trying to think who's going to be mad about this, or who's gonna disagree on this. I don't know, maybe someone who's taken one too many gauze rounds to the dome.
I think it's going to be... And this is pro and con either way, and there'll still be the cost of the weight and everything like that. So I honestly think this is a low breadth. I think it's only going to be like a 1. I don't think many people are going to really disagree with this opinion, because it's more like, I don't know.
I feel like there's probably going to be some disagreement in like the competitive space, because you don't want the BattleTech fights to just descend into like everyone is gauze Jaeger mechs sitting a kilometer away from each other all the time. So I think it's more than one. I think there's a few people that would think that this is, maybe they wouldn't be mad about it, but they would think that like, well, I don't think that you should make that change.
So you're thinking it's a 2, is what I'm hearing.
Sure.
I think 2 is okay too. Yeah, it's not going to be a lot. And then on the topic of impact, yeah, I agree. I don't think there's going to be a lot of frustration out of this. It will break people's lists, is what will happen. But that's it. If they implement this, and people have to redesign their lists and stuff like that. But I think it intuitively makes sense that a sniper should be able to shoot accurately. So I'd probably say
I like this one. You know, there's definitely some tourney organizers who would be, you know, they'd have to redo their house rules or whatever, but it doesn't really get the like rage that we really want here,
that we need.
We thrive on.
So what is it? A 2 as well? 2-2?
Sure.
Yeah, it'll frustrate some people.
Yeah.
The next one, though.
Lambs are, again, sort of not one that I've ever really been around. I don't even know what the rules are. I've never seen one before. I don't know. Were these things like murdering people at some point, or is it just like they're too goofy? Like, I don't know.
People don't like them for a few reasons. One is that they can be very strategically useful. But 2, the main reason is that this is the BattleTech universe and everything's clunky, and you have a machine that can transform into 3 different forms. And it just, like, from a technological perspective, it's hard for people to grasp. Big Red actually did a video on it in which he was like literally entitled "Why I Hate Lambs." I'm pretty sure that's it. So lambs do set people off. And they also really slow down the rules. So there's like lots of little things here. So this is something that I think from a breadth perspective, if you said lambs are perfectly fine, I feel like you're going to get a common reaction to it. People are going to be like, oh, what do you mean they're perfectly fine?
We know the breadth has to be at least 1 big red. But you're right. It's probably higher than that.
Yeah.
But it's probably mostly older people. Like, I suspect a lot of the newer players
have even
never
played
seen
lambs,
a lamb and don't have any, like...
They don't realize how cool they are. They don't even see them across, probably. They don't even know the base. Yeah, I'd say this is like... I'd say this is like a 7 or an 8, to be honest. I think it's going to be it's going to have a high
7.
breadth. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, because I think most legacy players, if you say lambs are perfectly fine, they're going to be like, what? What do you mean they're perfectly fine? It doesn't make any sense. Blah, blah, blah.
I've never even seen a lamb. The closest I've seen is the aforementioned spider with a partial wing.
I mean, it's a lamb adjacent partial wing. When it goes hull down, it becomes a lamb.
I think a 6. 6 for bread.
I'll do 6. In terms of impact, actually, I don't think this is actually not going to rile a lot of people up, except perhaps Big Red. But even his video about it, was fun, and like he's always a very positive dude, so it was like poking fun at it appropriately. But I think that Like from a lore perspective, I think most people will be like, it doesn't make sense. But then people will point back and say, well, this is from the Star League days. This is when they started making them, the Star League. And the Star League had more advanced tech and stuff like that. It only makes sense in that context. Yeah, okay. Then people will mention the Tete book and be like, Far Country. And they're like, there's a lamb in that. That book sucks. And then I'll be like, well, I like the aliens, actually. I don't know. I'm pretty easy to please.
If you came across someone on the table and they were like, actually, lambs are perfectly fine, they say, while pulling out their like classic pewter minis of the lambs, then you'd probably just be like, oh, game's going to be like 5 hours.
So I think the impact of this is this is like a taste thing. I don't think it's really going to enrage anyone. I think it's like commonly held relatively, but people are going to be like, you do you. Doesn't make sense to me. I think it's a 4 or 5. Okay. What do you think? 4?
Call it 4.
Okay, 10. All right, so then we have 10 against 4. So clearly, lambs are fine, takes that victory. I mean, honestly, that's going to happen when and when those two compared, look, lamb's taking that victory for sure. It doesn't even matter if you're a sniper with a targeting computer. Can't even hit the friggin' lamb, bro.
It's moving too fast or something.
All right, next. What is 2 of my opinions? Oh, God, Michael. This is so embarrassing. Random seeds just don't make any sense. Okay. My first opinion. BattleTech unit lists are uninspiring and irrelevant. The success or failure of a unit depends on its environment and its mission. When people make BattleTech unit lists, they fail to take in consideration these important variables. It's always in this generic battlefield fight to the death setting. It's always generic. Whenever someone shows me a list, I think to myself, what's the scenario? Because without the scenario, I cannot even fathom how this thing is going to function. That's my hot take. Number 1.
And we all know that Nathan is very wrong about this. It is obviously an extremely bad take. But what's his other take? Take number 2 is that the Atlas is a dumb mech. And, that one's fair enough. The premise of the design where you build a 100-ton war machine and then stick a skull on the front of it so that it's more intimidating is literally like 6-year-old behavior for what you think would count as intimidation. And yeah, that's fair enough. I agree with that.
Thank you. It's like if you have a war machine that is 100 tons and you think, I need to make it scarier, then the war machine's not doing its work by being a war machine. It's like pirates put skulls on things so they become more intimidating. Like they need that extra edge. You don't need a 100-ton war machine doesn't need that extra edge. All right. Okay, okay. First let's do the list one. So list.
So you're wrong about BattleTech unit lists. Like unit lists obviously serve a role. We talk about how you have this rich universe and stuff, and how do you bridge that gap from the rich universe of geopolitics and neo space feudalism and stuff? How do you bridge that military procurement? How do you get that to the tabletop? Unit lists give you a chance to be like, oh, this is what would have been available because they bought this line of bad mechs, but they got them at rock bottom prices. So now 1 out of every 2 mechs in the Lyran Commonwealth is a Charger or something. So it lets you bridge that gap. To just say like, oh well, I just pick whatever's most important. That is borderline metagaming yourself. You don't know whether you would have had those mechs available.
So when you're agreeing with me, you're agreeing with me then. BattleTech
no,
lists
I'm saying unit lists are vital. You should have to randomly roll on those lists. You should even get to choose your mechs.
Oh, wait a second. Okay. That's not what I mean by unit lists.
Oh, okay.
I mean, unit lists, random unit mech tables are amazing. I mean, when people make their lists, this is my BattleTech list, and they build a fantasy lance out of mechs. that they put together and like, this is the ideal lance that I would bring on the table. That's what I mean by BattleTech unit lists.
Okay, but what if that's the mechs that they have?
Well, then
you've got this, like, you're a mercenary company or whatever. I don't know. Like, you're arguing with the concept of having a list of mechs.
I'm arguing with people making this idealized mech list to create this optimum battle force that they're going to bring to the table. Like, check out my list. How good would this do on the table? And the question is always like, what's it doing? What's the environment? That all matters. That matters. You can't just take a random list of mechs or put like an Atlas and a Mauler and I don't know, like Jenners and put them together. Like this is a good fighting force. How good would they perform? I don't know. What are you doing? What's the situation? That's what matters. Are you doing like civilian sort of population control? Are you escorting a friggin' parade through the city streets? You probably don't want a 100-ton mech doing that, buddy. That's the craziness, man. That's the craziness. And people love their list.
Is that a thing? I think more controversial would be saying that you have to consult the actual like available units list before you're choosing.
Well, I think that's also good too. Yeah, I think people should do that as well. But yeah, exactly. You shouldn't be able to just make a unit list without like consulting the availability of the mechs. Exactly, yeah, Michael.
Do you think your commander is even going to let you drop an Atlas for a scouting mission? You know, unless you're working for Steiner? Probably not. So yeah, you know, the people have had it too good for too long, just being able to come up with their idealized unit list. You know what? You're right. I've come around.
Yes.
To your opinion.
Yes. Thank you. And you know what? People love to make their idealized unit lists. That's what I know. So I know that this is it's not a lot of people love to do, but I see it all the time. So I think that this is, from a breadth perspective, is 5 or a 6 for sure. Yeah. Most BattleTech players have done
agree
this.
With that.
Let's do 6. I think that from the IRE perspective, this is basically telling people the work you've done is useless. It's like the work you've done is meaningless, bro. Like, why'd you build that list? Doesn't make any sense. It has no value. So this is definitely gonna make people pretty angry with me. It's gonna impact.
Yeah, really,
them.
you should just be getting whatever mechs you're given. Like, whatever the boss says you can bring.
I think that this should be a 7 or an 8, to be honest. Maybe a 7. This is going to frustrate people. It's a personal attack on work they've put in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The way you're playing the game is wrong.
I regret doing this episode now that I said that out loud. Okay, next one. The Atlas is a dumb mech based on it just having a skull on its face. The Atlas is quite iconic. I think that most people like the skull. So I think that probably, I don't know, I think the breadth of this one is going to be pretty big. I think it's going to be maybe a 6 or a 7. People are going to be like, no, that's silly. The Atlas is iconic. It's like insulting the Mad Cat.
Yeah. I remember when we went to a physical event and they had I think they had 3 different kinds of stuffed mechs. One of them was the urban mech, one of them was the Atlas, and then there was some third one I don't remember.
Archer. Yeah. And yeah. So I think this statement is gonna, like, it's in the cinematics, it's in so many things. So I actually think that 7. It's a 7 for breadth. But I think for impact, I don't think people are really gonna care if we say this. Like, it's like a, I
don't know. This is not only an attack on dorky mech. This is also an attack on Kerensky himself.
Oh, and you're right. And by that, I'm attacking all clanners. I'm attacking the honorable Steel Vipers, and the Steel Vipers won't stand for this attack. It's audacious. I can't believe it's coming out of my mouth. Oh my God, I've betrayed my own clan. It's A banishment
or whatever. I would name what's the clan punishment called? I don't remember these words.
There's many different ones. They'll just a trial of something. I don't know. They'll do a trial, or they'll just friggin' annihilate us.
Trial of idiocy.
Trial of idiocy.
All right. I feel like this is comparing to the unit lists. I don't know. I feel like it's almost going to be a pretty similar like scope of people. Like if you think that mechs like the Atlas are cool, I bet you probably have like your fun list that has your favorite Atlas 7D or whatever.
But are you going to be bummed out that someone says it's not really intimidating? It's stupid because it's a skull? I don't think people are going to be that enraged. They'll be like, eh.
No, I don't think so. No.
I think it's a 2. I think people are just going to be like, eh. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you for 2. If someone like if you put your beautifully painted Atlas miniature on the table and the opponent on the other side is like Atlas, kind of a dorky looking mech, isn't it? You're not going to throw yourself over the table with them.
So that means 13 to the BattleTech unit list to a 9 to the Atlas is a dumb mech. So that means BattleTech unit list, take it, which I think makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Next, we have dun 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 dun. Where are you? We have a submission by Loremaster RetroLazer, which is clan mechs are not overpowered. BV is not a great balance, but it does its work. And clan mechs are way too overcosted at 3-4. You just need to be dishonorable and gang up on them.
Fair enough. And we've got it pitched up against 1x1 Loremaster RetroLazer. Wait a second. Who came up with this bracket?
It's random. It's random, Michael. I randomized it.
And he says on the other side, Inner Sphere XL engines are fine. They're fine on mechs that have no or a lot of tonnage. He says that lights already die easily and they have to move quickly to not explode. The big chunky assaults are going to be on the board forever anyway, so it doesn't really matter the fact that they have, this extra vulnerability. And points out that, the random golden BB getting through the armor, that's just BattleTech. That doesn't really factor into it. But basically that like XL engines are not this big, dumb OP monstrosity, at least on the mechs that have no tonnage or a lot of tonnage.
So breadth for these. Clan mechs are not OP because the BB...
Well, we found that like the IS clan split was about 50-50 based on our survey. So, I don't know. This is like 50-50.
Yeah, I honestly think that most people, because of the BV cost at the 3-4, and like, once again, you get one clan mech at 3-4, you can get 2 decent inner sphere mechs. I think we're past the point of people thinking clan mechs are not OP, or think clan mechs are OP, rather. However, at the same time, those legacy players that came when the clan invasion, those really old school players, those are the ones that I think would be targeted by this and be frustrated with it, the legacy. Because that's when they used to balance stuff via tonnage still. And when you balance stuff via tonnage and you're comparing clan to inner sphere, there is a significant power differential there.
I'm not even a legacy player, and I have terrible memories of being annihilated by like 8 medium lasers on a clan mech and thinking that was dumb. So, like maybe clan mechs are not OP, but sometimes it sure does really feel bad that they can move faster and don't ever have to worry about overheating and their weapons are better. Like maybe they're not OP, but
It's like, it's all about how you're balancing your games, right? Because if you're balancing it via BV, then I don't think it's a problem. But if you're balancing it via like tonnage or lore, then in my opinion, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, you say that because you're usually the one piloting the clan mechs. You're running around with your Jenner 2C, and I'm clomping along in my blackjack, and it doesn't feel so fair and balanced.
I've played my Jenner probably 10 times the amount of times I played Jenner 2C. So I think that the Jenner is a majestic beast of an inner sphere mech. And I do not think that the clans should ever touch it again and ruin it like they did with the Jenner 2C. The Jenner 2C is not good. Anyhow, if we use the Jenner 2C comparison, If you ask me, Nathan, are you going to take a Jenner or Jenner 2C in battle? I'd be like, I'll take a friggin' Jenner. I'll take a Jenner over Jenner 2C.
Yeah, and you will die in a melted pool of slag like you always do.
No, Jenner 2Cs are so bad. It's dying. A Jenner would kill. What were the clanners doing? Like, okay, there's lower reasons. But okay. on the table, I would take a Jenner over a Jenner 2C with the same skill any day. And even though the BB value would be different.
I feel like Clan Max not being OP is a bit more controversial than you give it credit for. I think it's a 4 for breadth.
Okay, I'll say 4. 4 is fair because, some people, like, I think Legacy and some people are, like, you poor Inner Sphere simpletons that haven't jumped over yet, it's hard. You have lots of trauma. But it's because we're such good strategists. Once you get better at strategy, you'll understand. It'll just take a few years, yeah. We can get you into a good, like, clan breeding program or the breeding program. That sounds very wrong. Okay, impact of this.
I feel like it's, like you say, it's not as bad as it once was. Like, it sucks when you feel it sometimes on the table and you're like, wait, sorry, you think how much heat this turn? Surely you must have built up some heat firing 19 lasers at me.
19
no?
lasers.
Okay.
Can you even load 19 lasers on a mech?
So it's not as bad. BV has leveled it out quite a bit. They can't get ganged up on,
So the impact, I think people are gonna, like, you're right. There are those people that are like, oh, this is a bummer, but they'll still look at the BV and they'll be like, okay, I guess so. Maybe a 4/4.
Sure.
Okay. Next one.
Inner Sphere XL engines are fine.
This one's interesting because I sort of think that XL engines are generally accepted now. So I think that the breadth of people complaining about this is going to be smaller.
Also, honestly, I think RetroLazer pulled their punches too much. By saying that, like, oh well, at least on the light mechs and the assault mechs they're fine. Like this is not controversial enough. This is like gives a nice, well-reasoned argument for, why they work fine and don't distort the game too much. This isn't like a super spicy take. Like every mech should have XXL engines by default. Yeah.
So breadth on this one, I'm gonna say the amount of people in groups that are gonna. I think it's just gonna be like maybe one person in a region, or maybe 2 max. Like it's not gonna be a lot of people.
Yeah, probably some old person who, again, likes to shuffle around at 3 speed and thinks that these kids these days with their XL engines while the partial wing spider soars overhead.
The trauma of the partial wing spider. Damn, and the pulse lasers. Spider. There's a spider jumping everywhere. Yeah, I agree. And then so I think the impact with him, I think it's like, this is like a begrudgingly annoyance, right? I think this is like a 2/2. I think it's like,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that means Clan Mechs are not OP takes it with 8 points. Dun, dun, dun,
I think
dun,
that's a good one. I think Clan Mechs deserved to win that one.
I agree. I'll read yours first, Michael. And yours is SRM suck. They suck. And why do they suck, as per Michael? They're unreliable. They have too many tons. They don't do enough damage when you finally get enough close enough to use them. All right, Michael.
They just kind of suck.
So I think that Inner Sphere SRMs suck. I think that Clan SRMs are quite nice.
Don't get me started. That's another controversial opinion later on.
So if you said this to IS, I'd agree with you, but I disagree. I friggin' love SRMs, man. SRMs and friggin' Infernos. Are you yeah?
You like SRMs because you like things that suck. You like the Jenners.
I do like things. That's a good argument. That's a good argument.
If you could run a Jenner that was filled with SRMs, like 6 tons of ammo, and then a bunch of flamers that would just immediately run up, get too hot, and explode itself, that would be your peak mech.
But okay, here's the thing about SRMs. SRMs are the only like mech-based weapon, I believe, that uses Inferno ammunition. Like there's heat-based weapons, and they're the most hands down effective at hitting with heat. So people that like heat like hearing SRM suck. So, okay, let's think about the breadth of this. I think actually you're right. I think most people are not going to really... I think most people are not going to be super angry about this. They'll be like, yeah, why do I use SRM when I can use like a PPC or a laser or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
But the people that do use SRMs are going to be like, what? Like me, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like getting rid of Inferno ammunition? That's crazy, man. It's like, what's wrong with you, Michael? Let me choke you, Michael. I don't think I choke you.
Is that what you're saying to me
that's
over
what
the
I'm
table?
saying right now. I'm choking him. I think this would be breadth, like of maybe 3, but I think that impact would probably be 6.
Fighting words to the right person.
Yeah, like me. Inferno, man. What the heck? SRMs are awesome.
Oh wow, you can pick one special ammunition and now it isn't garbage. Wow.
There's also harpoon SRMs. I think they're SRMs.
Yeah,
Anyhow.
when you're looking at a mech sheet and you look down and it's like, oh wow, and I've also got an SRM too. What are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with that?
You should have said SRM 2, Michael. You shouldn't have said SRMs. SRM 2s are garbage. SRM 6s are
that's
for
what
the
most people bring is friggin' SRM 2s because you're like, well, I got a couple tons left over. I might as well stick something in there. Oh, what if I put an SRM 2?
They probably should have stuck some
choice.
lasers. Yeah, I would have stuck lasers as well. Yeah, okay. That's fair. That's fair. All right.
And this is pitched up against Technician Dire Situations submission, which says that what CGL has done with the line is amazing. You know, CGL has maybe not been perfect, but who is? And it's great to have this resurgent and so many products coming out after like 40 years of BattleTech. And, you know, sometimes fans just want everything to be what they want it to be and can't see the bigger picture that actually it's pretty good.
So this one's interesting. This is a really good submission because I think that this one, I'll just say it straight up. I think that the breadth of this being controversial is low, but the impact is the highest of, I think, our entire list. I think the impact is 10 because some people really, really hold CGL with disdain in their heart.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, to me, this almost seemed too saccharine. Like this was, you know, because everyone that we've ever talked to has been like, yeah, you know, this resurgent in BattleTech is great. But yeah, you know, I guess maybe the reason they feel the need to like say that is because they have occasionally met the people who are like,
yeah, some people really, really, really don't like CGL. And they're not a lot of those people, for sure. Like, I think most people really are like, well, look, you know, it's a resurgence of BattleTech. It's we get all these new miniatures and stuff like that. All, you know, updated rule books. Like there's, like even talking to Randall about it, even he thought CGL was a good shepherd, and he's been there along for the journey the entire way across different companies. So I think this is going to be rare. I actually think this is going to be like a probably 1 or 2 in a breadth, but I think it's going to be a 9 or a 10 impact.
a 1 and 10,
1 and 10,
a 1 and 9,
or 1 and 9. Your call. I think it's 10. I think I've seen some pretty negative posts.
Yeah, and negative in a way that like other things can't be. Like, you know, a lot of the other stuff is like at the table, whereas this is like, I don't know, this can get real nasty.
Yeah, it's bigger. Okay, so that means it's 11 against SRM Suck being 9. So sorry, Michael. I mean, you were fated to lose there. So
I really did not. This is probably the biggest upset for me so far.
You thought, I see.
Like seriously, when I read this is some like huggy wuggy nonsense of like, oh, you know, actually BattleTech's great. We all love it. But I guess, you know, it's got like that dark seed inside it. That's what makes it so great. You know, we all love it, except those of us who don't.
Yeah, some people really don't. So, all right, let's go to the next. And the next we have a submission by MechWarrior Lorian Sunrider. None of the Inner Sphere houses are actually that likable, because they all make an effort to be morally gray at best, which means they're all flawed enough to be meh. Ooh, that's a fun one.
and this is pitched up against Loremaster, RetroLazers. Extremely controversial here, at least. More rules do not mean the game is better. Finishing and having fun are the main points. You know, it's about game flow. Finishing the game is the goal number one. And then as your group gets good at it, then you can start to mix in advanced rules and use them.
I'm offended. That's a personal attack against me in the podcast. Okay.
So start with Inner Sphere houses. I guess I feel like this one's maybe softened over the years, especially with like, you know, tons of different people doing all these like lore deep dives and us having like a very different lens that we look at the lore, where now we're sort of like, haha, you know, look at all these silly feudal houses. Aren't they all kind of bad people? But for a while, you know, there were really like good guys and bad guys, or at least they were tried to put as like the good guy houses and the bad guy houses.
Yeah, I agree. This has really evolved over time, and now people, I know we all have houses we like and stuff like that, but as Lorian says, it's all gray.
Mm-hmm.
I think that some people will be there will be people that will argue for certain houses, Free Worlds League and stuff like that, being like likable. Like the term is likable. Like it's not necessarily good. You know what I mean? He's like saying they're not really that likable. So for interpreting in likability, I think like saying good or wholesome, people are going to, that's not going to impact people as much. But saying likable, I think that people are going to be like, what do you mean? Like, so I think this is going to be about a 5, to be honest. I think it's going to be pretty common.
Yeah. When you come along and say that, you know, space feudal America is just as bad as space feudal, like, I don't know, generically evil houses. Yeah, there's got to be someone that's annoyed by this, right? You know?
Mm-hmm. But I think just that, the word annoyance, I think that's what it's going to be. I think the impact is going to be, it's another taste thing. You know, it's like the Atlas thing where it's like, oh, you don't like skulls on mechs. What can I do? It's the same thing with this. It's going to be like, yeah. If it doesn't resonate you, it doesn't resonate with you. So I think it's going to be probably a 3 or a 2. So scoring an 8 total. What do you think?
This was probably something that would have annoyed more people in the past, in like the heyday of BattleTech novels and stuff.
80s and 90s for sure. It would have been a different story, but now I think it's different. Yeah. Okay, now the personal attack on me.
Yeah, the personal attack on this podcast. So great job bringing something so disgusting to our podcast.
Hey, this is one of our Loremasters. Speak venerably, Michael. You should be averting your eyes.
Thank you so much for bringing your disgusting opinion to us. We appreciate you.
So I actually think, despite this being sort of a little bit of a like controversial for our podcast and what our podcast purports, I actually think for the general BattleTech community, the breadth, most people are gonna be like, yeah, too many rules. There's too many rules in BattleTech. I don't want to play any more rules. So I think that like this is literally gonna be a breadth of 1, to be honest. I don't think you're gonna have many people that are gonna want more rules.
And that one is us.
And that one is us. And
Lambs was a 1 of Big Red, and this is a 1 of BungleTech.
But for the impact, like, see, the thing is, he positions this so well. He says this is about game flow, and I 100% agree. You can't, like, if the advanced rules, the rules you're playing with, the more rules, if they impact the game flow so much that their new value add doesn't like overcome that, then I agree. So I actually think that this is actually very wise, this statement. The game is about flow. Finishing the game should be goal 1. When your group gets good at it, that's when you should learn advanced rules and use them. So I feel like this is honestly like, even though I'm the target, we're personally the target, Michael, I can't disagree with it. I can't get irate about it. It's wise. I'd give it a 2. I give it 2 only because I wouldn't, if people heard this and they're like, well, then I'm not going to learn advanced rules. And then I'm like,
it would be hilarious if we gave it high scores just so that the official position of our podcast had to be don't play with more advanced rules.
Oh man, 10-10.
That would be like a fun reversal.
Yeah.
BungleTech really jumped the shark in season 3 when they had to stop playing with advanced rules.
What a twist.
It's controversial for us. I feel it's got to be more than a 2 just because of how like intuitively angry this makes me, but you know, you're right.
Okay, we'll do a 3.
3.
Okay, 3. We actually can channel it. Okay, well, that means it's 4, and none of the Inner Sphere houses are actually that likable is 8. So none of the Inner Sphere houses moves on up. Oh,
all right.
Next one. Oh, yes, I want to talk about this one, Michael. It's one of my opinions. Oh, I get to talk about one of my own opinions. I hate the expression meat is cheap. I think it is a dumb expression. You hear it all in the BattleTech universe. Meat is cheap. Meat is cheap. Because this insinuates that pilots are a dime a dozen and can be easily replaced and should be treated as consumable assets. Okay, the sentiment just oozes through. But if that's the case, wouldn't pilots be the most effective way to improve the longevity of your mechs? If you treat your pilots as consumable, you're as well treating your mechs as disposable, and we know we don't treat mechs as disposable. Meat isn't cheap. It is the most cost-effective mechanism to increase the lifetime of your mechs. It's different. It's cheaper than your mech, I understand, but it's not cheap. It's cost-effective. Don't devalue pilots. It's like saying like Kai Aller Lau, like oh, meat is cheap. No, you put Kai in anything, dude. It's light years ahead of where it is. So no, in my opinion. And also like investing in training and like all that stuff for pilots. Yeah, man. I think so cost effective. So not cheap. I don't like that expression.
It also like really undermines the whole like conceit of, you know, you are the greatest warrior on the battlefield, wielding the greatest weapon that war has ever conceived of. You are a modern day knight striding across the battlefield, and then be like, oh, meat's cheap. The pilot doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. You know, I feel like this maybe came about like this feels to me like some like 80s, 90s like cyberpunk just seeped in from an adjacent game. And yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem like what BattleTech's about to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. That seeping in, it does feel like something seeped in. It does feel like, especially considering the, forget the other franchise. What is it? Anyhow, doesn't matter. It does feel Shadowrun. Yeah, it does feel like something seeped in though from somewhere.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that is pitched up against one of mine, which is that Comstar is all right. As a faction, they're better than pretty much all the other deranged warmongers in the sphere.
Okay. Controversial. That is controversial. Okay. Let's go to meat is a dumb expression. So I think that people love this expression. If you say meat is cheap is dumb, I think that most people are gonna be like, what do you mean that's dumb? That's BattleTech. I guess how people are instinctively going to think, but I think then if you talk about it after, they'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I think that this is going to be a high breadth, low impact.
I'm gonna try to get a rise out of you. I think when you argue against using forced withdrawal rules, deep down, you have been infected by this meat is cheap mentality. And so you've got it in your head that like all of your pilots, you know, they're all willing to die for the sake of the objective or whatever.
Difference between an honorable clan warrior perspective and a cowardly inner sphere perspective, Michael. That's the delineation there. Yeah. Meat is not no, Michael. They're honorable. They're it's not cheap. No, Michael. No, you've been misinterpreting me all along. It's not that way. It's because they are honorable warriors and they are focused and they believe in themselves and their ability to make their own decision when it's time to withdraw.
All right. So I'm with you. I think this is a pretty widely held, maybe not everyone says it, but a lot of people have internalized it.
Yeah.
lots of jokes about like, oh, we'll just hose the pilot out and drop a new pilot in there. Where are you going to get someone else who can pilot a mech? You're supposed to be super trained to get that far.
Exactly. I'm going to say it's a 7-2. That's what I think. 7 for breadth, 2 for impact. Because when you talk to people about the, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I'd go a bit higher. I'd go 8 for the breadth. I think this is a widely spread and an insidious little idea.
Okay. 8-2?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Next one, okay. Comstar is all right. Oh, man.
This is another one that I feel like, maybe mattered more, but you got again lots of people doing lore stuff and talking about the phone company in space. So, I think this one's probably softened a lot over time.
But what do you think? Because when I hear Comstar, I think inherently Word of Blake, because it evolved from Comstar. It was a splinter organization of Comstar. So it depends if you're including them or not, because they are not better than all the other deranged warmongers. They're like the most extreme in many ways. So it's like, if you believe, is this just Comstar or is this Comstar and Word of Blake?
I don't think it matters. I think that if you think that the clans were justified in coming in here and doing clan nonsense, how is that different from the jihad coming in and doing jihad nonsense?
I think the level of nonsense and the fact that the clans came in with actual rules of battle and Word of Blake they were friggin', I think they were using nukes and stuff like that. Like, it was just a different level of chaos. And also the ideologies of Word of Blake, the fact that Word of Blake was this pseudo-religious organization, whereas the clans are, at least, well, they're not all the same, but like, they definitely are not motivated by religion. They're motivated by tradition, which is the same thing, I guess.
Yeah, friggin', they're going on vision quests and
vision quests.
Honor
only like one, like one clan. Come on.
No religiosity whatsoever.
No, that's because all the clans are not the same. But like, overall, their overall system is like a militarized. They gamify war, whereas the clans gamify war, and that's one of their problems because they treat war like this game. But the Word of Blake treated war like war, like genocide. so it's like genocide or gamify. And I think if I had to compare the two, I'd choose well, it's hard because gamify leads to genocide. But at least there's one step in between. There's one step in between the genocide.
Well, when I wrote this, I was really specifically thinking about like classic Comstar.
Okay.
Not new flavored Comstar.
Mm-hmm. And mainly because the phone company
maybe that's
sentiment.
Part of why like old Comstar doesn't feel as bad anymore is because you're like, well, at least they're not crazy religious fanatics nuking people. Yeah, they might do a little like secret atrocity now and then, but who hasn't done a secret atrocity?
So if we're talking original Comstar, I think that you saying Comstar is all right. In the olden days too, with that stuff, like, people felt controlled by Comstar because, Comstar was trying to control stuff, obviously. But like, they had decent intentions in many ways. I should take that back. Decent's too strong a word, but they had intentions that, from their perspective, were slightly less self-interested than other, I think, houses. So I'd probably say that a breadth of this, if you say this to people, I think the breadth, maybe 6, people are going to be like, what do you mean they're all right? But I think that the sentiment's going to be low, or impact's going to be low. I think it's going to be like a 6-2. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'd accept that.
All right, so we have 6-2. So that's 8 versus meat is cheap is 10. So meat is cheap passes on. Actually, that's actually sort of similar. Meat and cheap is Comstar is all right, like sort of based on historical sentiments.
Mm-hmm.
Now, next, we are at one of Michael's controversial opinions. The IS and clan versions of technologies are needlessly confusing. The weapon labels are supposed to represent capabilities with a broad range of specific models. If the clan versions have different capabilities, they should have different designations. Okay. And what's this Oh, you bastard. Another one of your opinions.
Up against another personal attack against my co-host. Satellite rules are bad. The rules don't do enough. The very existence of the rules raises questions that the game can't answer. Like, you arrived on a spaceship. Access to satellite clusters should just be like a cheap, easy default that you just drop them in orbit on your way down. And the game would be better if it just pretended that satellites don't exist, or you just assume that they're always there and they don't do anything. The fact that you have this rule for like randomizing which satellites are in orbit is a dumb solution to a problem that I don't believe anyone ever had.
Okay.
So anyways, let's talk about IS and clan.
Okay, can you break this one down for what do you mean by different designations? Do you mean like if there's an ERPPC in clan and inner sphere, they should actually be called something different?
Yeah. You know, like we say that like, well, you know, lasers come in, you know, are roughly categorized in 3 sizes. Presumably there's every possible like wavelength and power output and pulse duration across hundreds of different models of lasers, and we just categorize them as small, medium, or large based on, you know,
based on how we order drinks at the movie theater.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of an abstraction. So then when you come along and be like, oh yeah, you know, they also make medium lasers, but they're different, then they're not medium lasers anymore. They should be something else. In the same way that we didn't, you know, we say like, some lasers use like pulsed firing, or some lasers use like 3-staged firing so that they can reach over a longer distance. We call those extended range lasers because they're different.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Like, just because when you have the exact same weapon name and you've the clan and the inner sphere designations, the only difference, you could tell that was invented to showcase the superiority of the technology coming in from the clans based on lore reasons. But it really, like, beyond the lore reasons, like, is there really a reason other than to confuse people? Probably not.
Look at the AC5s. You know, you're going to tell me that every single autocannon that we considered an AC5, they all had exactly the same ranges, you know, different calibers, different loads, different firing rates, and they all had the same effective ranges until the clans came here and they made ones that shoot further.
Yeah, it's definitely strange. Okay, so if you say this, you know, I don't think this is controversial. I think it's sort of a good point that most people haven't thought about. So the people that I think reject it are going to be the people that really care about the lore. And they're going to be like, no, we have to represent this. This is a lore representation. Because that's the only reason I can think of, right? So I think that the impact of this is going to be breadth maybe 2. But I do think that the people that care about this will care about this. Reasonably so. I think that the people that are that much into the lore and like, no, the system has to represent lore. This is a narrative system. We can't change it. We can't make this. It'll change the game. It'll become more like Warhammer or some other tabletop. We need to embed the lore.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to have people maybe at a 5 or a 6 for impact on this one.
Yeah, I could see that. I guess I sort of have to acquiesce a little bit too, because I feel like the people who are going to be most upset by this are probably going to be clan players, which, as we know, is about half. So inherently, that sort of limits the scope for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the inner sphere players are with me. They got my back.
Yeah, and it's, you know, but everyone who's picked up BattleTech and played a clan mech and learned the range bands and then jumped to an inner sphere mech and it's labeled the same thing and it's different, everyone gets confused. Like, I thought SRMs were always 369 for the longest time. I'm like, wait a minute, clan mechs are 4812? Like, oh, damn. So, like,
yeah, just no one in the inner sphere could figure out how to make a missile go further.
Short range missile. Maybe they're just bound. They're like, no, it's short range. The max it goes to is 9. It's short range, man.
It was a lesser known addendum. You know, no nukes and also no SRMs that can go more than It's 180 meters.
Yeah, exactly. Part of the Ares Accord. Okay, so the next one is the satellite rules are bad. Man. Okay, so for the record, I love the satellite rules. You know how much
We all
I
know you
love
love the satellite
rules.
Nathan.
But you're right, they're bad. They're bad, and it's like the connection, it's too arduous, and the random element of it. I do think, though, that they are explained in the rules from a lore perspective, or from a lore-ish perspective, about why it's a random one. So the random one makes sense to me. I mean, I'm not a techno guy. I'm not any science guy. So maybe it's just my, small philosopher brain. But I'm not going to disagree that the satellite rules are bad. And I embrace this personal attack, but I think it's going to be a breadth of one. That's what I think. Who even plays with the satellite rules?
Mm-hmm.
And impact? Okay, if this is targeting me, they are bad. But they're cool. They're bad, but they're cool. So the only reason I don't want to give this really low, because I know it does impact me, because I love the satellite rules. So I think I'm the audience that this is targeting. So I feel like this would be a 3 for me. That's what I think.
Dagnabbit, listeners, I thought I had him this time, but
oh, but it tears me up to say it. And that means the IS and clan versions of technologies are needlessly confusing is a 7. The satellite rules are bad is a 4, which means IS moves forward in the bracket. Boom. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. So much easier than connecting to a satellite. All right, next one is by MechWarrior HeyZeus. His belief is that Wolf in Exile are the true clan Wolf. Details in the lore corroborate this, but due to confusion of reusing the clan Wolf, and some players assume that Wolf Empire and Alaric are actually clan Wolf and not some new poser clan.
Maybe that's all on purpose.
Ooh, this is a tough one.
I'm gonna have to lean on your expertise here, because I ain't no lore master.
I think that the Wolf in Exile definitely maintained the ideologies of Clan Wolf better than Alaric did. I think that, really, or did they get perverted by the Inner Sphere? Do they need to be annihilated? Steel Viper would say they need to be annihilated. Oh, should I go to the Steel Viper route? Ooh, that's hard.
Yes, feel the conflict brewing.
Or Reeve, they should be Reeve. They should Reeve, not annihilated. Yeah, I don't know. This is hard, because I think there's going to be lots of debate on this. That's what I think. So I think that, and I think most people are going to have an opinion on this, because it's Clan Wolf, and everyone knows Clan Wolf. So I think this is probably going to be like a 7 for breadth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think an impact is going to be, it's probably going to be a 4. Because I think some people, like if you don't care about Clan Wolf, you don't care about Clan Wolf. But if you care about Clan Wolf, actually, I'm going to change it. I'm going to change this to a 6 and a 5.
I feel like it might even be more than that. Because, how can you not care? Clan Wolf has been strangely at the center of the lore for a really long time. And now they are, really central to the current progressing front of the lore. So even if you're just I don't like any of the new lore, there's a good chance that Clan Wolf has something to do with why you don't like the new lore.
So you think the breadth is going to be higher? That's what you're saying.
Maybe not the breadth. I think that maybe the impact might be a bit higher. I think this might be a 6/6. I think there's at least one BattleTech table that has been torn apart with the strife of whatever latest BattleTech novel dropped, and people were like, Clan Wolf in Exile, the real Clan Wolf.
Okay, we'll do that. We will put it as a 6/6, because I think you're people that care are gonna care. Oh, but you know what? I think we should make it a 5/6, because people that care are gonna care, but not everyone's gonna care.
How can you not care?
You understand, people be like, oh, the clans are all the same, it doesn't matter. And then if you're in the clan, if you're a clanner, you're like, I don't care about Wolf because I'm not a Wolf clan dude. I'm a Steel Viper or whatever. So if you're in a clan, you like your clan. You don't like the clans. in general. They're like enemies with the other clans. So, and the Inner Sphere people all look at them like, well, this is just, the general clan invasion. So I think that not many people are going to be irate about this.
How can you not care about them? They control Terra.
But it's irrelevant. If it's irrelevant if they I guess you care about that they're controlling Terra, but it's irrelevant if they're the true clan wolf. So the Inner Sphere doesn't care if they're true clan. Doesn't care who they are. They invaded. It doesn't matter to the Inner Sphere players if they had the proper ideology of the wolves in exile or whatever. You know what I mean?
Fine. Have it your way. This nice controversial position is pitched against some more fighting words from our beloved RetroLazer, who says, Succession Wars games are boring. They take too long. You don't know what you're talking about, RetroLazer. FASA intended you to shuffle around the battlefield 3 hexes at a time. What do you mean they take too long? You're in giant battle robots. Of course they're supposed to take a long time, especially when you play with all the advanced rules.
I think that most people are not going to disagree that Succession Wars games are boring. Because it's limited in technology, it's limited in mechs and all that stuff. Like don't get me wrong, the Succession Wars are super interesting. But I think playing with Succession War tech, I think people are going to consider it flat and boring.
But we've talked to people who still play Succession Wars games. I think there's a sizable contingent who the Succession Wars is basically peak BattleTech, and everything since then has been goofy nonsense.
There are those people, but once again, this is people that were maybe playing since the 80s, and we have new blood coming in. There's only some of those people, so I think this is a breadth of 3, man. I think it's a breadth of 3, but I think that it is an attack. So I think that those people that hear this are going to be like, "No, you just don't know how to play. This is like chess. This is when things were pure. This is when it was chess. And now you have all these fancy technologies coming in, muddling things up, creating scummy strategies, like Nathan said earlier."
So this is a 2 or a 3, but it's fighting words to the right person.
I think it's a 3-6 or a 3-7.
Yeah, I'd agree. 3-7 certainly made me mad, and I'm not even a legacy player.
3-7. So it's a 10, which means the wolf in exile or the true clan wolf is technically an 11. So wolf in exile barely scrapes through there.
Both strong contenders, but...
Next, we have another one by Michael. Mechs with varied weapon loadouts are good. Mechs are supposed to be the most powerful, most versatile machines on the battlefield. Mechs which focus on purely one range or type of weapon should suffer seriously in all but a narrow band. The Shadowhawk 2H is the platonic ideal of the mech. Well, it sounded good until you made that last statement there, but let's go to the next one.
This is pitched up against one of Nathan's, which is that the Total Warfare rule base is boring. It's kind of flat, it's predictable, and it doesn't have the depth and variety that mechs should be able to do on the battlefield.
These are sort of similar in many ways. I think they're going to target or enrage similar people, which is funny. So let's talk about the breadth of yours one. So mechs with varied weapon loadouts are good. So I think anyone who plays from a narrative focus is going to agree with this probably. It's competitive focus where this becomes more controversial, right? So I think it's automatically limited to the more competitive players.
I don't think it's just the competitive players. I also think sort of casual players will fall into the same thing of because there's lots of people that we've played with, and even new players are sort of immediately drawn to why would I take a mech that has a small LRM, a small autocannon, a small laser, and a small packet of SRMs? Why would I do that? It doesn't do anything well compared to, some monstrosity that has 19 lasers and a partial wing. Yeah. I think this is a broader scope. than just competitive players.
Mm-hmm. Actually, when you talk about it, I think you're right. I think it is a broader scope. What's interesting is like the impact will be different dependent on the group. So like it impacts different people differently. So probably a 7 for breadth, I'd say. And for impact, because competitive players will be like, what the heck? Like, no, they aren't good. And then you'll have...
They're bad.
They're bad. And then you'll have the players, like the newer players that you're talking about, they're just getting to the game that you're right, that have like, why would I do this?
Yeah, why would I pick this bad version? There's this other variant that has 3 PPCs and can annihilate anything across the battlefield. Why wouldn't I pick that?
But I think that those players would also understand the logic here, and so wouldn't really reject the logic as much. This is an interesting one. I think it's a 4 on average.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, the newer players, but even if they're feeling that way, they're sort of at that time looking at it from a competitive perspective, and then it might just change their perspective, or like they might like, oh, if they stay that way, then they're focused on the competitive path. If not, they go down the narrative path and it makes sense to them. So I think it's like, it's still like, it's almost like targeting the competitive instinct.
Yeah.
That one's interesting.
Yeah. I'd agree. And, flip side, Total Warfare is kind of boring. There's not nearly enough to do. What if there aren't rules for my mech dropping down to one knee, tearing the arm off of a mech that weighs 75 tons, and then throwing that arm like a spear at a nearby mech? Are you even playing BattleTech?
So I think this statement is going to trigger a big breadth of people. Because most people play with Total Warfare as the base, or the BMM, right?
Mm-hmm. This almost feels like the complement to the somewhat less controversial, don't mix more rules in if you have to, make sure that you can play the game at a speed that everyone enjoys. This is kind of like the complement to that, which is like, what are you doing if you aren't mixing in all sorts of weird rules?
Yeah. I think that the breadth for this is actually going to be an 8. Lots of people are going to be like, what do you mean? This is how I play the game.
People who are like, I want to actually finish the game. Imagine, Nathan, if we could play a game where we had more than like 3 mechs on a side and it didn't take 12 hours to run. What would that be like?
Boring.
Probably flat, predictable, and lacking in depth and variety.
Exactly, Michael. I want to savor my BattleTech games like a glass of wine, which is a bad metaphor for me because I don't drink, but I see people savoring glasses of wine. And not the spitting out savoring, the actual, taking their time. Not wine box either, bottle.
So yeah, I would agree. This is almost an 8. This is like, I feel like maybe not the most enraging, but a lot of people will be like, what are you talking about? Like, I want to enjoy the game. I don't want to sit there reading rules all day.
Yeah, and I also think saying the term boring, sort of a little bit of an attack. It's boring, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it depends how you say it. I'm like, I think it's boring. But if you're like, your game is boring. So let's say it's like, I think it's boring. I think maybe a 5. What do you think? 5 or a 4?
I think this could be a 5. It would depend how you said it. I think I could say it in a way that it would be a 5.
Yeah. Okay, so that means they are scoring 13, and the mechs with variety of loadouts, blah, 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 is scoring 11. Close.
Very strong showing there from
another
base
close.
Rules being boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Very close. Next. I like when I get to defend my own. Actually, no, let's switch. You defend mine and I'll defend yours because it's you and against me.
No. I'm fired up about this one.
Okay, fine. Piloting is more important than gunnery, you doofuses. And that's because gunnery is arguably only more important in a standard game. The more advanced rules you leverage, the more important piloting is. Also, this is very clear in an extreme example. A 0-8 mech will consistently lose against the equally skilled pilot with an 8-0 mech. And there's reasons for that. They're very tangible, you know? It's clear. I don't want to get into it. But piloting is more important than gunnery.
And this is pitched up against one that is near and dear to my heart, which is that narrow, low-profile battle mech quirk was always too powerful, and it should have stayed that way. Low profiles and angled armor are just better. And it's not the Marauder's fault that the Centurion got designed like a big dumb brick.
Roblox, whatever that is, like Roblox. It totally could be a Roblox.
Okay, so let's start with yours. You are mathematically incorrect.
No, you're mathematically incorrect.
There is no way a 0-8 mech is losing to an 8-0 mech.
100%. If there's terrain involved, if we're not just in an open field where it's just like shooting heaven, if we actually have terrain we can navigate, we can hide on, there's rules in the advanced rules that I can use as I can use skilled evasion to get close. Even if you're 0, you're still going to be hitting at 6 target numbers based on a 0 piloting with my movement TMM. Like, I'm going to get close. And when I kick you, you're falling. And that's the thing. You can't dodge that -2 kick, or I charge you or I DFA for you. There's no escape. Like, there's no escape. As soon as I win initiative, man, if I'm losing initiative all the time, 100%. But as soon as the person with better piloting wins initiative, and if they're strategically moving in, that charge is a guaranteed hit. And kersplat.
This is peak parkour brain of like, you don't even understand. I'm going to just flow through the terrain, forests, swamps, water sections. Doesn't even matter. I'll just be moving so fast you won't even know. And then you're going to catch a gauze round to the dome and die. Especially with advanced rules where you have ways to stand up, or at least to get to a standing enough position that don't require piloting rolls. So, having an 8 pilot skill would suck because you wouldn't be able to stand. But if you're playing with the advanced rules, you can just go hull down. I don't think you realize how much an 8 difference on 2-6 is. That is absurd in terms of how much of a difference it is. Maybe in some world where both mechs are chargers and the really bad ones that only have small lasers, sure. You can contrive a universe where piloting is more important, but you're going to lose in everything else.
No way, man. Think about it. You still okay. I'm running at you. You're like, let's say we're across the field. I can use skilled evasion and with my movement profile, so that means I'm already 5+ target number to hit, right? And then you have your range band on top of that with the 0. So let's say it's long range, 5, 9, pulse, 7, targeting computer 6. You're hitting on 6s. When I get close and it's a comparative modifier, my charge against it's guaranteed hit, and you're gonna fall. And obviously, so if it's a damage game, I understand. You would win, but your pilot's gonna die because they're gonna fall and they're gonna bonk their head, and then eventually they're gonna fall unconscious, and then I just start kicking you. It's like eventually the pilot will die.
Piloting skill is vital because if it's too low, then you don't know how to strap your seatbelt in and you'll just keep bonking your head over and over again.
Literally. And in comparative roles, like it's comparative. So that charge, man, eventually they're going to get in.
Don't get me started on charges.
Okay. So anyhow, what do we think? For breadth, I think the majority of the BattleTech community is going to be like, what the heck are you talking about, Nathan? You're insane.
Yes, and the majority of the BattleTech community will be right.
No,
9.
They're wrong. Okay, you're putting this as a 9?
I think this is a 9. I think anyone with a basic understanding of mathematics.
It turns out the most controversial opinion is just the most stupid one. That's going to be so great. Okay. I would argue this to my death, but I think people are going to be like exactly like your reaction now. What the heck? This doesn't make any sense, Nathan.
I'm sympathetic. I think that, piloting isn't a dump stat. I think there is reasons to sometimes have a higher one, but the position you've taken here is absurd.
No, let's do a money match on the table, Michael. I will put money down. I will put dollars down, Canadian dollars. I'll even put like $5 USD down. That's right. I'm going to take all my savings, put it in a USD, drop it on the table.
All right. We'll organize a money match for deciding this. I think this is pretty darn controversial.
Not controversial in like an anger way, but controversial in like a what are you talking about way. So I don't even know how to classify. Is it a 6 or is it a 7? Because it's going to rile people up.
I feel like a 6. Like most of the time, if your opponent on the other side of the table says it, you're going to be like, all right, man, yeah, have fun. I'm going to stand over here and shoot you.
Okay.
All right. Narrow, low profile. I feel like this is a pretty broad one. Like lots of people have always talked about how narrow, low profile is like really good. It's been nerfed like 2 or 3 times in its history. I guess the controversial part is that it should have stayed that way. And I think a lot of people would disagree that narrow, low profile should have stayed good.
This is as high as the piloting one. Maybe not as high, but it's like 1 under max.
Yeah. I don't know. This feels like a 7 or an 8.
Yeah.
Not everyone plays with the quirks, so
let's do 7 just because of the knowledge of it. Like people that have played with this and played against it are like, especially because it doesn't have a cost. If it had a cost, it'd be different, but it doesn't have a cost.
And I feel like in terms of this one could actually make you a little bit mad over the table. Like if your opponent is like, no, we should play with the classic narrow low profile rules for my Marauder 2 and my Night Star. I think that I think we got to play with the original rule.
You'll feel cheated, I think. I think it's a 7.
As some of my opponents have felt when they would land it and they get the stacking, because we played with the stacking glancing blow. So they land a shot with a medium laser and it would do like 1 damage. And I'd be like, yes, score another one for low profile.
It's like all my weapons are SRMs. Like, what's happening?
So this is like a 5, I think.
You think it's 5? I'd say it's higher. I think it's 6 at least. Because it's frustrating. It's like if you have someone that comes to the table and they like are adamant, like you say, like, no, this is should say that. Well, I guess no. This take it out of the table context. I think you're right. 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's high. 13.
This was a fight of titans. I think we both did good at coming up with really dumb, controversial opinions to have here.
13 versus 15. Piloting barely takes it.
That was a real slobber knocker.
Number 26 from Michael. People play too safe. Mechs with the armor tip of the spear, use your superiority and strike boldly. Do you want to live forever? And this is against...
Yes, it's against a Nathan favorite. I know this one is a personal hobby horse of yours. That the standard grinder game mode that CGL plays at their events is uninteresting, and it does not achieve what it intends to. Grinders are a common game that is utilized to introduce new players into the game. In the most common format, they let players get some experience playing multiple different mechs, starting with lighter mechs and slowly graduating up to better, heavier mechs as you die. And this should be the other way around. Grinders should start from assaults and then move down to lights, because this is a better way to learn and it makes better gameplay. All
right, let's do yours first. People play too safe.
And, I genuinely don't. Maybe this isn't the experience that a lot of people have, but for me, you're all a bunch of cowards. Cowering over there behind your one high cover in trees, making sure you never expose yourself to any risk. You've got armor. Every pip of armor that you leave the match with is wasted resources. Indeed.
Yeah, this one's hard. Because I think that, lots of people are going to look at this and they're going to think to themselves, I don't play safe, I'm playing smart,
Mm-hmm. That's how I win.
Yeah, but I think lots of people are gonna get impacted by this because most people don't just run into battle, and most people do play overly risk adverse in BattleTech, I would say. So I think that this is probably going to be a 7 in terms of how many people sort of like react this. And I know it's a game of strategy. I'm not just here to brawl. You know, maybe a 6.
Yeah, enough people would be caught in this Hadouken of controversy.
I think that in terms of the impact of this, so this is sort of criticizing people's play style. And I think that could bum people out, and it could be a little frustrating for some people when they feel like they're playing tactically, and it might make them feel like, wait, am I just a coward deep down inside?
And then their feelings would be hurt, and, they might cry a little bit at the table.
I think this is probably a 7.
I feel like a 6.
Yeah, I think it's gonna upset people.
Sucks.
Yeah,
It would hurt to feel it, but
okay. CGL standard grinder, blah blah, is no good.
So I think I've only ever played one grinder match in my life, and it was fine. Actually, I didn't even play the match. I played one mech until it exploded. So I guess I could take it or leave it. This might be controversial to some because, I know it is a pretty popular game mode. You would think that you would love it because it's weird and chaotic and doesn't make much sense. So, it should fit right within your favorite kinds of game modes. But there's something intuitive and fun about, as you die, I'm going to get a better mech. Only some sort of deranged maniac who thought that piloting was the most important skill would be like, I want to upgrade from my Atlas towards a partial wing spider. Explain yourself.
So when you're learning BattleTech, I think the first movement is extremely important, but people don't realize how important movement is when you give someone a very high movement profile. So they just have it to spend it. So when you're learning BattleTech at the beginning, really what you need to understand, I think, is the importance of movement and the importance of different range bands with weapons. So if you start it with a slower mech that has a variety of range bands, you really get a lot of chance rolling dice and not worrying about the strategy of perfect positioning and everything like that, because the option isn't available to you. It feels a little bit limited. And as you die, you get new mechs that all of a sudden your strategic ability to move around the battlefield evolves as your knowledge of that evolves as well. And let's say you get to the end scenario where you have an awesome, and this awesome has survived the entire grinder, and then you have a locust come up and that locust takes out the awesome. That's an epic moment that is cool. But awesome taking out a locust because that person has died 10 times and now has an awesome, and that locust has been surviving at the same time, that's like destiny. You know what I mean? So I think from the narrative perspective and from the learning perspective, it is just it's not as interesting. I understand why they use this,
so what
but
you're
I think
saying is you hate it when the new player comes in and blows up your gen. That's what I'm taking away here.
I just hate new players. That's what. No, I just think it's more interesting. I just think it's more interesting.
I'm starting to realize, what you said a few rounds ago about maybe we needed to make a better distinction between controversial takes and bad takes.
So I think this one, though, with all that justification out of the way, I think that the impact of this is going to be small because not many people have played the grinders or care, right? So I think you're going to have max 3. Max 3.
So the breadth is kind of low. Yeah.
The breadth is low, yeah, sorry. And I think the impact, literally all I'm saying is flip the grinder around. And I think people are going to be like, oh, I might try that. I think it's not going to be...
No, I think people are going to be like, no, why? That sucks.
You think so?
I don't want to be, it sucks to be like, oh, wow, that awesome got really lucky and wiped the floor with us. Now let's try to throw successive series of smaller and smaller mechs at it, and maybe one day it will die.
But by that time, if an awesome makes it all the way to the end, they've already fought other assaults, they've already fought other heavies, already fought other mediums. So I think that like that awesome is going to be torn to shreds. So this is going to be like, and that's gives the light an opportunity to actually make something. But with that opportunity comes the risk of an awesome with 3 PPCs just blowing you out of the water. And I think that risk brings excitement. Yeah, I really don't think people are going to find this impactful. I think people are going to be like, why not try it? That's what I think. But you think it's going to piss some people off, eh?
Like, not a lot, but
What number are you
like
thinking?
a little bit. 4. Not because I think it'll make them mad, but I think just because they'll be like, why would you do that?
Okay, makes sense. So let's take a comparison. So that means the grinders are 7 and the people playing too safe comes out at 12. People playing too safe wins it pretty soundly there, which I agree. Yeah. Saying you play too safe is very different than saying you should change the order of how the grinder runs.
I think you should make the grinder weirder and less intuitively fun.
All right, next we have Classic is better than Alpha Strike, brought to us by Loremaster RetroLazer, who said, this is just an opinion, but I jumped in and said, no, it is better because BattleTech was designed to be narrative experience. And we've discussed this with the actual designers and the people that have been in it for the longest. It was designed to be a narrative experience. Therefore, you want a system that is more narrative in its nature. And I believe that is lost in the Alpha Strike format. So, Classic is better than Alpha Strike. Boom.
Too streamlined, says Nathan.
Too streamlined. Exactly.
And this is pitched up against one of Nathan's personal opinions. Actually, kind of a similar one. This is weird. Where Nathan says BattleTech should not be played competitively. BattleTech was designed to be a narrative gameplay experience. That's the way the developers have talked about it, that you can see that in its rules. The only way to make competitive BattleTech fair for any definition of the word is to like limit things down, modify rules, and make it really, really structured. So why would you even do that? And this is backed up by... Sorry, what Loremaster is this backed up by? I don't know.
RetroLazer, actually. The RetroLazer. We backed up each other in this one. This is this weird synergy again.
So this is backed up by Loremaster RetroLazer, who said the game is not and never was balanced. The 2d6 dice curve is inherently predictable, but chance is really harsh. And things like, the battle value system are just not well put together, where movement tech is really expensive, pulse weapons are really cheap, and Classic was built out as a board game like 40 years ago now, so it's got all sorts of weird issues that haven't really been fixed. Like he calls out LRM 10 weight being weird.
These are similar yet different, which is interesting. So let's start with...
Yes, similar yet different. An astute observation.
Michael, don't be sarcastic.
So Classic versus Alpha Strike.
Okay, so Classic is better than Alpha Strike. So obviously all the Alpha Strike players are going to be like, what the heck, man?
And I feel like this also catches a fair number of Classic players, because for controversial opinion, it doesn't just have to be like agree versus disagree. This is one where like RetroLazer said, it's just an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be lots of people with opinions and lots of people who have arguments on forums about this.
Yeah. I think it's a 7 or an 8. This impacts a lot of people, or this like lots of people are touched by this.
Yep. I think so. And I think that this like simmers.
Yeah.
This is maybe not always on the surface, but there's that lingering discontent.
Yeah.
Alpha Strike knows that they're inferior, and Classic knows they're just one notch above those, lunkheads who can't figure out how to play on these hex grids. And I bet that just simmers beneath lots of like friend groups. And they like, the Alpha Strike group and the Classic group both show up at the game store at the same time. They're like, oh, hey, BattleTech, eh? And Alpha Strike's like, yeah, love me some BattleTech. And the Classic player's like,
do you?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Do you really?
Okay, so the impact of
my
this...
stat sheet is bigger than your stat card.
Yeah, how many stat cards can you fit on my stat sheet? And that just is the difference of superiority right there. I think I can fit 20? 20? Come on, guys.
So I feel like maybe I'm just reading into it. Everyone certainly acts all friendly, but I think this is an 8 or a 9. I think.
I think this is 9. No way.
Simmering. For bread, I think everyone deep down, look in your heart. Do you truly believe the other side is equal to you? You as a classic BattleTech player, feel in your heart. Are you truly free of the ego of learning a bunch of rules?
I know if I said this, so I do think Classic is better than Alpha Strike. But if I said that to someone who's an Alpha Strike player and I give my narrative reason, I know they're going to say, well, that's because Alpha Strike focuses the narrative element more on the lance rather than the individual. And there's also lots of different things here. So this is a really big taste example. So I don't think this is like Coke or Pepsi. So how much is the difference between Coke or Pepsi this day going to enrage someone? I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. I'm saying I think the bread is 8 or a 9.
Oh, yeah. Oh, breadth. Sorry, yeah, breadth is 8 for sure.
Impact, I don't know, everyone's pretty friendly.
Yeah, I thought you were going to impact, we were going to throw rotten eggs at each other or something. I'm
fights at our local gaming store. You don't know.
That scenario we used with Big Red was actually not the Warhammer players. It started by the Alpha Strike and the Classic players at the Swedish game store being actually, Classic is better. How dare you? And I think also because, there's this resurgence in BattleTech, the BattleTech community itself is even though someone might want to play Classic, someone might want to play Alpha Strike, there's still this sentiment of, oh no, but we're still BattleTech. So we're still playing BattleTech together. So I think it's going to be, I don't know, a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
Let's do 3.
I'd say a 4.
A 4? Okay, let's do 4. I'm so easygoing. This is how I treat the Alpha Strike players. I'm just oh, you want to play Alpha Strike? Okay. All right. BattleTech should not be played competitively. Oh boy. Oh boy.
This one's pretty similar, I think, but I think the breadth is smaller.
Yeah.
But the impact is higher. Because you're only calling out the subset who believe in competition. And that's a lot of people. Even people who don't sign up for tournaments or whatever, BattleTech is competitive. It's almost absurd to say that it shouldn't be played competitively.
Okay, let's do the context of competitively, because competitively in this context is in a competitive tournament-based setting with prizes and stuff like that. Clearly when you're playing, you want to win on the table.
Right. But when you attack that notion of oh, well, it shouldn't be played competitively, it sort of undermines the whole concept of it's a game. I am slippery sloping you right now. If we continue down this road, pretty soon BattleTech is just going to be a narrative RPG.
A collaborative narrative. Hey, we already have that. What's the BattleTech? What's it called? The BattleTech Legend? No, I don't know. There's the role playing system that is like that already.
Yeah. That's exactly what's wrong with modern BattleTech. Everyone just wants to get along and hug and friggin' kick Blakis or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. This one's hard for me. I don't think oh man, I think so. You have a good point. It does. So it attacks competitive players, but it also makes it feels like it's attacking players that just want to play the game and win. And they're not even they're not going to tournaments, but no, but I want to win.
Yeah. No.
So probably a 5 for breadth.
Yeah, I'd take a 5.
And I feel like I worded mine so sharply. I don't know. Just if you're going to hate me.
I mean, that's That's the point, Nathan. Don't lose sight.
No.
That's what we're here for.
Oh, 2 years of love and is burning it all down in front of us. The bridge is crumbling. Okay. Impact.
Competitive players, turn the podcast off right now. Don't turn the podcast off. Please don't. We need the listens.
Okay.
Take your earphones out. Keep listening to it all the way through. And,
they're playing in the background.
Play the next episode as well, but you don't have to listen to us anymore.
Oh, God. Okay, Impact. Ooh, I think that, well, this is another split thing. I think it's gonna make people feel bad. It's gonna make people feel bad. So I'd say it's a 7 probably for me.
I would accept the 7. I want to see you stroll into the local game store next time you get invited to like take a slot at a tournament and just be like, actually, I think that what we're doing right now is against the spirit of BattleTech. I think that you're all enjoying it wrong. I actually have prepared here a narrative campaign if you want with me. It's set on an alien planet full of weird bird creatures, and I think that we could thrown out through the window.
All right, let's see how these compare because these ones were pretty heated. Oh my God, is that our first? Okay, Classic's better than Alpha Strike is a 12, and we have. Where are you? What number is that?
BattleTech should never be played competitively. I think we also just made that a 12.
It's 12-12. Oh my God, we got our first roll off, boys. All right, so when this happens, when we have a tie, we got to see which one performed better on the battlefield to make it to the top, to once again be the most controversial BattleTech opinion in the world, taken from a small sample size. Let's roll it, Michael.
We're so deep at this point. I've almost forgotten the meta-narrative construct that was built around this because, gosh darn, this is a big tournament we built.
It's huge. We're splitting this episode in 2, Michael. We got 2 months of content. Don't worry. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll roll the competitive. You roll the other one.
Oh, dude.
BattleTech should not be played competitively. Did not have a great showing today.
Well,
with a 5.
Classic is better than Alpha Strike. Rolled 1 short of 12, good sir.
Ooh.
Steel Viper dice. Let's.
Steel Viper is in peak performance right now.
Classic takes it by 1.
Classic takes it.
There we go. Let's go to our next one. Number 12. This one's a good one. I'll read it, Michael. I'll read what you wrote here.
And then I'll read what I wrote. Because it's me versus me again.
Michael versus Michael. Michael says the clans don't make any sense. Their society makes no sense. Their exile makes no sense. Their technology advancements make no sense. Their military effectiveness makes no sense. Standing next to the inner sphere, which doesn't make much sense, just makes the clans somehow even more bonkers. What a thing to say, you bastard. Read your next one before we get to this nonsense.
All right. This one's pretty straightforward. Gauze is overrated. You just like it because the number's really big and you got a sweet headshot on like turn 2 that one time. That's what's carrying it in your mind. I
just want to straight up say there's no way Gauze is winning this one. With the clans, this is like, this guy's won tournaments before. This clan doesn't make any sense. And they've come in and it's like this new player.
I'm just playing for fun, I've been playing for like 2 or 3 years. Picked it up, played a bunch of locals and stuff, and so I thought I'd enter the big controversy tournament.
This guy's like, yeah, well, I won this last year and 3 years running. They actually had to nerf my character specifically due to some combos I invented and won the tournament over. Yeah. So
I feel like clans make no sense is in particular like a really old controversial opinion. Like,
yeah,
clans make no sense is probably past their prime. They're not the youngest and the sharpest opinion that we've thrown out there today. Alpha Strike's like new and hot and stuff, whereas griping about clans, that's old news. But they still show up and post competitively despite being like 27 years older than everyone else in the tournament.
To me with this, I think Like at the high level, I almost agree that clans don't make sense. But when you go to the points, I disagree with the points. And then I guess I think that the clans do make sense at the end of the day. I wouldn't say the clans aren't ridiculous, but to me, they still make sense in a ridiculous sort of way. So I think that when you say the clans don't make any sense, the breadth of this is going to be big because there's clan players. So I think it's going to be a breadth of 5. It's going to be split right down the middle.
Right. And I feel like it also catches not only the clan players, but I think it catches a good chunk of the like legacy players, you know, people who were here when the clans arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're, you know, they might agree with me.
Yeah.
I think this is a 6.
Well, as a clanner myself, most clanners do think their clan is ridiculous in a little bit of a fun way. We like to laugh at ourselves, but I still think we think it makes sense. Like if it comes down to it, we'll still defend our clan. Steel Viper did nothing wrong. So I think that this is probably, if someone was saying this to me, and I'd probably defend it with the impact of a 4. I'd probably be like, no way, man. No way, man. I'm telling you. It does make sense. And this is the reason. And if you kept on saying, doesn't make sense, I'd be like, well, this is getting a little bit frustrating, you know what I'm saying?
But I think this is one of those like classic things that like at one point in history, the clans threatened to tear apart the BattleTech community.
Yes.
And you know, while you know, time heals all wounds, there's still a deep scar left in the hearts of those legacy players about, you know, the forum wars of 1999 or whatever. I don't know when the clans came out.
So you're thinking that because of the sort of the historic trauma that this would be higher for certain people.
Yes.
So it's one of those split ones again, you're right, where like some people are going to be like, whatever. Some people are going to be like, no, like.
And you can still see that in how some people talk about it, you know, joking about people being furious about clans. That's still a thing that we know and understand.
But those are also, but the trauma is reversed because clans don't make any sense. The people that are saying this are the ones that were traumatized by this. So they would agree with this statement, so they wouldn't be irate. So basically it's the people that were clanners that were told that the clans don't make sense. They're the ones that we're talking about their impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the impact's going to be that high. Yeah, I think like with your point, if it was those people that like were originally playing during the Succession Wars and the clans came in, and you said clans do make sense, then those are the people that are triggered. But clans don't make any sense. Those are the people that they're going to agree, and those are the people that are going to be the most irate about it.
But the controversy has like both sides, you know. This is something where you could be like invited to like some old friends, like, yeah, man, I dug out my old BattleTech set from the 90s. You know, I got together some old friends to play with. You know, do you want to come? And you could be like, yeah, man, I think that the clans don't make any sense. And then, you know, it just erupts into chaos. You take that back.
I just can't imagine that happening, Michael. I just can't. But maybe.
All right, 4 or 5. 4 or 5 for impact.
4. Let's do 4.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, the Gauss is interesting because the Gauss rifle is overrated. Honestly, most people are going to agree with this, especially considering ERPPCs exist. Like, why would you want something that is explosive if it doesn't do more damage? Sure, the range's a little bit better, but I don't think this is that controversial. I think the breadth of this is most people are going to be like, when you say Gauss is overrated, they're like, and if they know it explodes as easily as it does, and that triggers case and all that stuff, yeah, man. Seems pretty overrated to me.
But you do not understand mathematics and make bad decisions. So maybe I have to flip my opinion around. The fact that you agree with me, maybe I need to have a second think about
Or
Gauss.
maybe I do understand mathematics and you need to have a rethink about that. Maybe philosophy, the basis of mathematics, one could argue, because you lack that foundational knowledge, you've taken one step ahead and, you know, you just you can't see the vowel in each of my words that is coming out of my mouth. You can't hear it, and it just sounds like mumbo jumbo. But if you heard that vowel, it'd be beautiful, my friend.
Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, maybe this is more of an agreement. Maybe I'm more thinking about like newer players where Gauze has that like sexiness.
It is still sexy, like if you're right. I bet you, but what you say, turn 2 that one time, like when you get a headshot with a Gauss rifle, but now you can do the same thing with the ERPPC. So I'd say
like 3.
I think
4.
I would even say 2. I'd say 2.
2. Yeah, okay.
Impact is going to be, you're going to have people that really like Gauss, but
they'll probably be like me who likes autocannons. They'll be like, yeah, I just think it's neat.
Yeah.
It's not as efficient. Should have brought medium lasers.
I think it's a 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Which means it is completely decimated by the clans don't make any sense, which was foretold. Clans don't make any sense is a 10. The other one's a 5.
Is there a clan Gauss rifle?
Is there I think it's the same. I believe it's the same technology. We would need to double check that. I don't know for sure. Don't quote us, people that are listening. We don't know. We don't know.
Go in. Tell your friends about the powerful clan Gauss rifle.
Here we go. This is the last. Oh my God. This is the last battle before we go to the people who have already fought. This is intense, guys. We're making progress here. 2 hours in. We're making progress, people. Let's go. Okay.
And this is I'm looking at these. This is a real slugfest.
Yeah, another one. First, an opinion of Michael's. BattleTech isn't as hard as people act like it is. It's just fiddly and lots of record keeping, mostly because it's old, not because it's complex.
I said what I said.
Ouchie.
Up against it, we have another heavy hitter from Loremaster RetroLazer. Honestly, like genuinely impressed. Loremaster RetroLazer, you can hang with us in terms of controversial hot takes. Loremaster RetroLazer says the Warrior trilogy is way overrated. It is very good, but there are so many other places you can start or go. And honestly, the only thing that I really have to say is you should have gone hotter with your take here, RetroLazer. Don't even say that's very good. Say that it's mid. Warrior trilogy is mid, and there's better options out there. Nathan, have you read the Warrior trilogy?
Yes, I have.
All right. Well, we'll lean on your astute knowledge and excellent recollection of all of the lore you've ever read for this one.
Oh, God.
So, starting from BattleTech isn't hard, it's just fiddly. I stand by that. Yeah, you can pour a bunch of, friggin' rules onto it like too many sprinkles on a cupcake, but at its heart, BattleTech is a pretty normal cupcake. It's just old and clunky. And, if it was designed today, it would probably look a lot more like Alpha Strike. Playing BattleTech doesn't make you better or smarter. It just means you have more of a patience for checking off little dots on a sheet. Or as we've learned from our survey last year, maybe you don't even have the patience for that, and you just make a computer do it, as tons of people do.
I think that this one's interesting because I think from a technical perspective, like one of the reasons why BattleTech has seemed so complicated is because of how the old rule books were put together. And like the new rule books, like once again, the BMM has made such strides in organizing stuff and just making it easier to understand. There's lots of, like, as you say, little record keeping things, but I agree, like even with stacking on advanced rules, it's a lot, but it's not complicated because of the rules. I think the complexity comes from actually playing it on the table and the strategic complexity. I feel like most people wouldn't. Actually, I don't know. This is hard because when you're a new player, it's super overwhelming. But once you played for a while and you realize that, there might be a bazillion rules, but you only need those rules for specific things, specific weapons. And it only matters when it matters. And it usually doesn't matter. I think it simplifies the game a lot. So I think that most people that have played will admit that. But I think that the people that take this statement to mean that it's not hard, it's not strategically hard, will reject it. And also, like, on the topic of building your lance and stuff like that, and like the BV cost and that building that stuff out, like there's so many elements to BattleTech that add up to make it challenging, but not, in my opinion, from a rule-based perspective.
Yes, I do think that BattleTech is challenging. I just don't think it's not that complicated. The rules are pretty straightforward, just with lots of fiddly things you need to remember. So what do we think? How
if you say it like what you just said there, I think most people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, yeah." It's in the interactions where the complexities come out and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I feel as it's written though, it really does feel like a 7. But I think if you say it like you just said it there, with that clarification, I feel like it's more of like a 4, where people are gonna be like, "No, you don't understand."
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that I'm psychoanalyzing the entire BattleTech player base right now. I think that deep down, you know that as a BattleTech player, your brain is giant. Unlike those nincompoops over at the Warhammer tables, they think they know how to do a game, but they just got lots of little units. With BattleTech, I have to be a mech commander. I got to remember all the different weapon systems and the interactions. I got to know the weight capacity of my legs so that I know whether I can tear the arm off of a nearby Atlas, And you're wrong. You're not smart. Is that controversial enough? Did that push it up to an 8 or something?
You should have added You did not smart. You didn't have to say you're not smart, Michael. It was a comparison. You were comparing the entire time, and then you just insulted everyone's intelligence. That's not right. I guess you're right. We innately, as BattleTech players, think... I would say that I feel like I'm playing a more complicated game than a Warhammer player is playing. But I wouldn't necessarily mean strategic complexity. I'd mean complexity in all the little record keeping and all the little things that come together, right? Like strategic complexity could be just as complex, if not more. So maybe this is something that is going to resonate with most people. Maybe it's going to be a 7.
All right. I'll take a 7.
It's so well thought out and clarified that I feel like it's not really going to, once you say it, it's not going to really make them irate. I think most people are going to be like, well, it's complicated from a strategic perspective, or from all the different element perspective. But yeah, you're right. The base rules, it's 2d6 based.
Mm-hmm.
How hard can that be?
Curse that friendly and understanding BattleTech community. My controversy has been foiled once again.
Let's say 3. What do you think?
I'll take it.
Okay, now the next one. This one's a little bit intense, because we got the Warrior Trilogy is way overrated. The Warrior Trilogy is some of the most iconic moments in BattleTech. So to say the Warrior Trilogy is overrated, so first it has to be impacting people that have actually read the book. So that's already a scope decrease dramatically, right? So max, it's going to be the people that have read the books. Max, it's going to be 3, because not every people have read these old books. So, or max is going to be as 4. So, and then you have the impact, once again, very iconic moments, Hans Davey and Melissa Steiner, marriage, Jamie Wolf chucking down the swords. We talked about that in our survey about some of the best lore moments in BattleTech that were referenced. The general corruption that it showed and humanness it showed in the BattleTech universe is really high. So I think it's going to be a 7 for calling this overrated, to be honest. He clarifies it's good, but calling it overrated, you know what I mean? Overrated in comparison to what? I'd say, okay, so the clan invasion books or whatever, but there's or Kerensky's Legacy. Are you comparing it to Kerensky's Legacy overrated? I don't know, this is a pretty iconic part of lore, so I would say, I don't think you're going to have people angry per se, but you're going to have doesn't make sense. I don't know. I 6 or 7. What do you think based on how I'm talking about it? It's hard. I don't know. It's hard. This one's hard. This is like core.
I'm not someone who's really consumed much through here, so it's hard for me to judge. You're naming some things that I know of, so I know some of the events that I know came from those books. But if you were like, oh, they're not written that well, I'd be like, yeah, makes sense.
Because we're admitting it's good, and we're not giving a tier of books. I'd say that we have to say it's a 5 or a 6 actually. But if we said like, if you didn't say it was good, just say it's way overrated, and there's so many other places you can go, then it's different. Then it's higher. But I think saying it's good, buffering the statement like this, I'd say let's give it a 5.
Yeah, that's fair. And this is sort of, people are a little bit understanding because like this is kind of old literature. This is some old paperback stuff. So
we're using our brains a lot more than I thought we'd be in this stupid joke episode. We're really like thinking things through. Okay. So anyhow, so that's a 9. So the Warrior Trilogy is way overrated, is rated a 9. And BattleTech Isn't That Hard was rated a 10. So BattleTech Isn't That Hard takes it. Ooh, that was actually very close. Wow. Okay, everybody. Well, now we are in the really interesting part. Because now round 1 has been cleared. Everyone has been scored. And now we just fly through the rest. So we're going to see their scores. We're going to compare them. And we're going to see if that makes sense. And then push them along to the next stage of the bracket. And now we are going through round 2. So we already have our first round winners, and now they're competing against each other. And we're just going to compare the scores, see if it makes sense, and move them on up as makes sense. So first we have prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage versus jump jets make the game too easy. Oh my God. They're both tied at 12. Roll off, baby. Let's go.
Okay, so do we think these still make sense? What did we say for prioritizing advanced rules? What did we set for the breadth and
we said 6 and 6. Prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage. And for the jump jets, we said dong dong dong, where are you, jump jets? For jump jets, we said, oh no, wait. I did the math wrong. 3 and 7. It's not a tie. Prioritizing advanced rules is 12, and jump jets make the game too easy is 10.
And I still feel like that's probably about right for them. Like, you know, having gone through some of the spicier opinions just a few minutes ago, prioritizing advanced rules, it's attacking like a huge subsection of the players. Honestly, I might even go like a point higher. I almost might go like a point higher for each. Like saying to everyone, like, if you bring advanced technology, that's because you're metagaming and scum.
Saying scummy, they're not their scum, they're technically scummy. I keep on clarifying, Michael. I keep clarifying. Okay. What we do is when there's a tie that needs to be readdressed, but for this one, it's a clear winner still, so we'll just pass prioritizing advanced tech rules over advanced rules is metagaming as the winner. Sounds good?
Yeah, I do think it's a clear winner over the jump jets.
And next we have lambs are fine. And lambs are fine. Lambs are perfectly fine. Scored a 10. And it is fighting BattleTech unit lists are uninspiring and irrelevant, which scored at a 13. I agree that BattleTech unit lists are uninspiring and irrelevant is a harsher thing to say.
I don't know. It's harsher, but I feel like lambs might drum up more controversy. What did we say for lambs?
For BattleTech lists are inspiring, we gave it a 6 breadth and a 7 impact. And for lambs, we gave it a 6 breadth and a 4 impact. Yeah, that was the thing, was the impact was much lower because not many people are going to be like, okay, whatever. I think that's
I think we may have overestimated a bit for the unit lists. I don't think they're maybe that controversial, but I can't disagree.
Next.
Sorry, lambs are fine. I did love you, but
Next, we have clan mechs are not overpowered with an 8 total, and it is against the CGL has done with a line is amazing. And clan mechs are not overpowered was an 8. CGL's done in lines was amazing was 11 because it was the highest impact, which I think is still true. I think that it's a clear winner that CGL, what they've done with the line is more amazing, would be more controversial, even though the breadth is smaller, the impact is much higher.
Yeah, that's a bit of a weaker bracket right there.
Next, we have none of the inner sphere houses are actually that likable, which scored 8. And it is versus Meat is Cheap, which scored 10.
Yeah, I think Meat is Cheap is a little bit underrated here. I think Meat is Cheap may need a little, maybe more than a 10, but yeah.
In this comparison, it's still the winner, yeah.
Clear winner over inner sphere houses not being likable.
Next, we have the IS and clan versions of technologies are needlessly confusing, which scored a 7, and it is opposed to Wolf in Exile are the true clan wolf, which scored an 11. I still think that stands. Yep. That stands.
Yeah.
Wolf in Exile.
You're going to definitely be able to start a fight with one and not so much the other.
Next, we had the Total Warfare rule-based BattleTech is boring, which scored a 13. And it is versus my own. No, please God, no, not this fight. It's fighting piloting is more important than gunnery, which scored a 15.
I gotta go with piloting is more important than gunnery.
Yeah.
I really do think that was just really strong. I mean, I think it might go all the way. Maybe not. Right now, it's a clear front runner. We'll have to see. But
next we have People Play Too Safe, which scored a 12 against Classic is Better Than Alpha Strike, which scored a 12.
Ooh.
That's actually, I think that's fair. So Classic is Better Than Alpha Strike had an 8 breadth and a 4 impact. People Play Too Safe was 6 and 6, which I think makes sense still.
Yeah.
I think we got to roll it off.
Yeah.
7.
10.
10.
10.
Classic is Better Than Alpha Strike. Barely.
Classic superiority.
Squeaks
being superior
through
as usual.
With the dice roll, the way it was destined to be.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Clans Don't Make Any Sense, which scored a 10, versus Michael's very own BattleTech Isn't Hard as People Think, which also scored a 10. Another roll off, Michael. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, honestly, these are probably in the same bracket. They take very different approaches. You know, one's mostly rule based, one's mostly lore based, but they get to the same point, which is you BattleTech players, at least a subset of BattleTech players, you don't know what you're talking about.
And that is a 6-4-7-3. Very, very close. Okay, I'm rolling for Clans Don't Make Any Sense. Oh, please lose.
All right. BattleTech isn't hard. Ooh.
5.
BattleTech isn't hard. Really underperforming with a 3.
Oh no, the Clans doesn't make any sense. I'm moving on. That breaks my heart. But that's how it goes.
It might be able to finish it. We'll see how some of these pairings work out.
All right, there we have it. That is the second branch of the tournament. And now we're on to the third, which means in total we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe we just have 6 matches in total left. 7 matches in total left to determine our champion.
We're on to the quarterfinals.
All right. First, we have prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage, which scored a 12. Versus my very own BattleTech unit lists are uninspiring and irrelevant, which scored a 13.
I don't know. This one doesn't. I feel like prioritizing advanced rules got the short end of the stick because it was so early on.
Well, BattleTech unit lists are uninspiring is a 6 and a 7, and the other one is a 6 and a 6. So lots of people make lists, but actually maybe the breadth is a little bit too high, because maybe the breadth should actually be 4 instead of 6.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the player impact is that much, to be honest. People that make lists love it and they'll be frustrated by hearing that, but they're not. I see it a lot of time, but I don't think everyone's going to go out and make a list. It's like a different way of looking at the game.
Compared to people who play with advanced tech, which is probably anyone who's played 3 games.
Yes. All right. Prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming. Moves along.
All right. I feel confident about that one.
We have CGL has done amazing work with a line. They're scored at 11 versus Meat is Cheap, which is scored at a 10.
Wow. I thought Meat is Cheap was a lot stronger than that.
So Meat is Cheap, we said an 8 breadth, but a 2 impact. And CGL has a 1 breadth, but a 10 impact.
Oh wow. They're like they're mortal enemies meeting on the battlefield here.
I actually think that more people would be okay with the Meat is Cheap. Like, once you understand the justification behind it, more people be like, yeah, whatever.
There's no hardcore, passionate Meat is Cheap believers.
Yes.
But there are hardcore, passionate CGL bad believers.
Exactly. So pushing that up. There we go. Oof.
All right.
Next. Oh, this one's a bit of a wash. But it is Wolf in Exile. Wolf in Exile are the True Clan Wolf at 11 versus Piloting is more important than gunnery, which is a 15. I think piloting is more important than gunnery is the highest score, but let's keep going.
It is the highest score, but is it stronger than the individuals? Did we just overrate it because, we were feeling spicy for that round?
So Wolf in Exile, this is a lore one. But once again, I still stand that most people don't really care that much unless they are fans of Clan Wolf directly.
Yeah. But there is something to say for, like, are we just saying that piloting is more important is so high because a lot of people will say that it's dumb. But, like, if there's no one who defends that position, is it controversial? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is controversial because you Nathan, you are controversial. If you show up and you start talking about this, it's gonna get 9 out of 9 people at the table with you are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" So I think it is.
Yeah, I think because the impact and how people think about the game in general, and because most people play with standard rules, and like all the things, like my argument maybe my argument would make more sense to them. But anyhow, I think that this is maybe the impact is lower for this one but I think that the breadth is pretty high because I mean gunnery costs more even in the system. The developers believe that gunnery is better too. So this is really like an outlier opinion.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, even the game designers think this is a controversial opinion.
Exactly. All right, next we have Classic is better than Alpha Strike, which scored a 12, and it is fighting Clans Don't Make Sense, which scored a 10.
And Clans Don't Make Sense just knocked out a really strong contender in the, like, rules challenge complexity thing. This is almost a rematch.
You're right. Yeah, it's like it's a different rule distinction, but it knocked out BattleTech isn't as hard as people think it is.
Yeah.
But I do think that Classic is better than Alpha Strike is definitely more controversial than Clans Don't Make Sense. Because one is like lore based, whereas one is like system based.
And what are the numbers?
The numbers were Clans Don't Make Any Sense was 10, and Classic is better than Alpha Strike was 12. 8-4 and 6-4.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right.
Although I do think that 8-4 is a little bit too high for Classic's better than Alpha Strike. I think it's more like a 7-4. But anyhow, it's there. All right.
Listen, it got it through to the semifinals.
Semifinals, baby. All right. Well, now we have prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage. Coming in at 12. And it is fighting CGL has done amazing work for the line, which comes in at an 11.
This is a close one, but I do think the numbers are right. I think there's too many people who feel too good about CGL has done amazing. Yeah, there's some like really deep-seated controversy there, but it's not as big as it was at one point.
Exactly.
Whereas if you come up and be like, you're playing the game wrong, that's what it is.
And it's a difference between, once again, like with that one, you're sort of, it impacts individual players, whereas the other one is targeted towards a company too. And so, yeah, I think it's very different. And the other one, piloting is more important than gunnery, which scores, once again, a whopping 15. 9-6 versus Classic is better than Alpha Strike, which scores a 12.
I don't think any of us expected to see piloting as the most important getting this far in the tournament. It was definitely considered an underdog going in, but gosh darn, we talked ourselves into it being really, really, really up there. Is it more than Classic is better than Alpha Strike? Like, you're more likely to end a friendship by saying that Classic is better than Alpha Strike. You're more like, that's more something like shouted in anger across the game store. Than piloting is more important than gunnery. Like, again, are we just massively overrating it because no one's going to listen to you once you say something like that?
Oh, this is hard. Yeah, because Classic's better than Alpha Strike, so let's break it down again. That's an 8, so an 8 breadth, a 4 impact. So we're saying if you say this, and with the reasons we had, which was first it was framed in the reason of opinion, and then supported by me saying, well, it's a narrative system, it works narratively better in Classic. Like that's sort of it's like more like there's the opinion and there's the narrative explanation. Piloting is better than gunnery, once again, is the 9 breadth, 6 impact. And the justification is gunnery is arguably only more important in a standard game. The more advanced you get, the more piloting is leveraged. And with the example of the 0880 saying that a pilot will always win, or the MechWarrior that's a better pilot in that situation will always win.
I do think that we've overrated the piloting a little much. I don't think the impact is quite that high. But
what about the breadth? Is the breadth even that high, actually? Because I'm thinking, like, if you say this to people in a group, how many people are going to be like, are 9 out of 10 people going to be like, no? Or is it actually like 7 out of 10 people? Or sorry, not that number's wrong, but like, is it going to be a 9 breadth or is it going to be a 7 breadth? Because how many people, maybe, newer players are going to be like, okay. Like, maybe players will say, okay, like, we've labeled this and people will think this is absurd as you think it is. But is everyone going to think it is absurd as you do?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me with my giant, incredibly brilliant mathematical mind that sees it this way, and everyone else is like, yeah, there's sometimes when you want to.
Because you have people that play melee mechs too, right?
Do you? I mean, I guess they have to exist, right?
Yeah, melee-based mechs, so.
Yeah.
I still think that if you say these two statements, you go into a group and you share these two statements, you're going to get more opposition from pilot is more important than gunnery, because people are going to think it's much more audacious than classic is better than Alpha Strike, because the people are going to say, no, that's just wrong. Whereas classic is better than Alpha Strike, people will react by saying, no, that's taste. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I still think it takes it. Maybe we need another metric.
I think you're right.
Well, now we have our champion. Last fight.
And guess what? They're both your opinions.
Who thought that I'd be a controversial guy? All right.
I should have realized this was going to be a mistake when I said that this was going to become the official position of the BungleTech podcast. There's no winning. Everyone loses. We both lose.
And so the last two are prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage. And that's versus the piloting is better than gunnery. And now here's the interesting thing. Like when I compare these two, so piloting is more important than gunnery is 9-6. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage is 6-6. So, this is hard. This is so hard.
I feel like we've underestimated the breadth here
of the prioritizing advanced tech one.
Of the prioritizing advanced tech.
I also think the impact. We also say there's scummy strategies mentioned here too. I think this is also gonna. I sort of think it's a 7-7 to be honest. That still loses.
Yeah.
That still loses.
Well, we've been saying that piloting being more important might be overrated.
Okay, so if we change prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules to metagaming for advantage, so we say it's a 7 breadth because lots of people have played this, and that's how you first advance yourself is you add new tech. You don't add new advanced rules. It's a standard practice, and this will bum people out because they'll be like, well, I'm not trying to cheat. Like this, I don't want to. I'm trying new things out. So it feels more like an attack, whereas the piloting is more important. And once again, it's the audaciousness of the statement that is riling people up.
Yeah.
So that's 9-6. And so 7-7's 14, 9-6, so it wins by 1. I think we have to I think we have to make it 9-5 and roll it off. That's what I think.
Yeah. I think those are too close to call. Yeah. Those are two absolutely fascinating hot takes of yours, Nathan, and I don't think I could choose between them. It's like choosing my least favorite child. I think we gotta let the dice decide.
Yeah, I think they're close, and they're like, I feel like there must be another element we're like missing here other than breadth and impact, because when you compare these two,
well, we'll have to reevaluate next year when we come back and we do this again. We'll have to reevaluate the system
in 2 years.
Add more complexity.
We're gonna have another 2 years of like love and like none of this drama, and then we'll like snap again for one episode. And be like, controversy again. Okay,
because really, that's what this is. What if? Never mind. We'll not go that way.
Okay.
What if this was an actual tournament? What if their stats were determined and then they had to fight it out? We could spend like 30 hours on this.
We really could. But do we want to? Do we want to, Michael? And the answer is yes, we do. We're doing
yeah, maybe. Okay.
Okay, no, let's roll it. But let's make this, you know what? It's grand finals. So there's more sets. So basically, there's no losers. So we got to win 2 rolls. Grand finals, there's more rounds, right?
So it's 2 of 3? 2 of 3 rolls?
Give me the honor of breaking the rules and rolling for pilot is more important than gunnery. I want to win this, baby.
All right, and I'll take prioritizing advanced tech.
First round. 11.
Ooh. 3.
Yeah, baby. 1-0. Next round, come on, baby. Come on, baby. I want to wash it. I want to have a good grand finals appearance. Oh shit. 2.
9.
Oh, it's
On the board.
It's the final. It's the final, baby. Come on, baby. 4.
10.
No.
The heartbreak.
Oh, but actually, that does feel right. To be honest, it does feel right.
Yeah.
Because one seems a little bit more absurd, and one feels a little bit just like more. It would actually piss people off more.
You can keep the piloting is more important. You know, that's actually one you've had for a long time, so you can keep using that as your hot take. But this is more than just you. This is the BungleTech official position. If you, as a BattleTech Classic player, prioritize taking advanced technologies over bringing in new advanced rules, that is essentially metagaming for your own advantage. Advanced rules benefit everybody at the table, whereas advanced tech just benefits you. How could you be so selfish?
Wait, we didn't talk about this. So by taking this stance, are we adopting the stance, or are we saying it's the most controversial stance?
No, I said what I said at the beginning. This is now the official position of the BungleTech podcast.
But we were trying to find out the most controversial opinion. So shouldn't it be our official stance of the most controversial opinion?
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. That's why we did this. So that we can sow division.
So this is now part of our brand identity, is that
this is part of our identity as players, as creators, listeners.
Oh no.
We strongly believe here.
On all our we're gonna put on our like a game mode collection. It's got a little quote at the bottom. Prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage. It's gonna be like our slogan. Oh man.
And, when people are like playing and they're like, oh, I'm gonna bring in this variant that has a partial wing or binary lasers or whatever. No. That doesn't make you a good BattleTech player. In fact, the fact that you considered doing that before you added rules for glancing blows suggests that maybe you like scummy strategies.
Oh no. What have we done? This was so much more intense than I thought it was going to be. This was fun, jokey, and look where we've gone down a dark path. I'm sorry, listeners. I'm sorry, community. This was a journey for me and Michael.
I'm not sorry. I'm only sorry that some of you people who play with, VSP lasers instead of tearing trophies off of mechs. I'm sorry that you don't really love the game as much as we do.
Oh my God, you were just slandering. I just realized it. Wait, remember the old hashtag Blazer Boys? Like, there was a meme, Jason Hanza. You just slandered the Blazer Boys gang. Like, BungleTech, we've just made enemies of everyone. Like, we've just cut ourselves out at the knees.
No.
With this.
We're still friends with the people who matter, the people who play with all the advanced rules. That's us and our friends, Nathan and Michael.
What was the percentage of people in the survey that said they play with all the rules again? Like, it's like 3% or something like that. We're
also,
still friends
maybe
with 3%
the people who
of them.
don't play any BattleTech, they might still be our friends.
Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, hey, there's lots of people that don't play any BattleTech in the world. I guess, lots of fish in the BattleTech sea, they say.
Yep, but far fewer of them in our sea. We're catching. We may still be catching lots of fish, but we're throwing them right back.
Well, before we wrap up, a quick recap of your top 3 controversial opinions contenders. Taking home the bronze medal is classic is better than Alpha Strike. Taking home the silver medal is piloting is more important than gunnery. And taking home the gold medal is, of course, prioritizing advanced tech over advanced rules is metagaming for advantage. What a controversial journey. And like I say, I did not enjoy the process at all. Michael seems to have
embodied it like he's fallen to the dark side. This is how people become Sith in the Star Wars universe. So the more you know, I guess. The more you know.
I'm one weird decision away from the most controversial opinion. I didn't realize I was going to end up here either, but if you like using advanced ammunition types for your autocannons, hit the bricks, bud.
Yeah, you damn autocannon users are metagaming for advantage. Oh my god. Okay, we gotta get to the next segment. I can't handle this anymore.
This is Professor Michael presenting The Sphere We Live In. Among the projects declassified following the dismantling of Comstar is the ComSat surveillance system, a 10-ton satellite intended to be deployed into high orbit above a world to collect reconnaissance data over the entire surface in a short period of time. As with many former Comstar projects, however, the development seems to have been troubled. The majority of sensors were refit from existing electronic countermeasure systems not suited to long-range data collection. The fitted cameras were designed for long-range captures of up to 32 kilometers, not nearly enough for orbital work in the hundreds of kilometers. Combined, it is unlikely the system would have achieved its goals of identifying individual surface vehicles with 80% accuracy, nor capturing all planetary troop movements in the course of 12 hours. Adding to the satellite's already improbable size were boosters capable of carrying the satellite out of orbit to a designated system rendezvous point. And it also carried massive explosive charges designed to annihilate the orbiter and any small craft nearby in the event it was detected. Plus a secondary launch craft which would carry the computer cores and recorded data away from the satellite before its destruction, or later picked up by a dropship. Ultimately, it is unclear how many of the surveillance systems were constructed or whether they were ever deployed. Like many of the ambitious projects Comstar undertook at its peak, this was probably just another marker of the organizational decay. Now you know about the sphere we live in.
Secondary objective, rule check discovery segment. Initiating.
Hey everyone, and we are back with your rule check discovery. I always forget the name of the segment.
Rule mistake check discovery mistake segment.
Rule check discovery segment. Welcome back, everybody, to a rule check discovery segment. And today, despite our very long content that you just listened to, is actually a simple rule mistake, and that is minimum range. What is the rule mistake we used to make, Michael?
Well, this is a fairly straightforward one. You can sort of intuitively see how it happens. A lot of players, including us at times, have only started counting the range penalties once you are below the minimum range. So once you're one below the stated minimum range on your sheet, then you get a +1 penalty. And this kind of makes sense because, if you're right at that line, then you're not within your minimum range yet. But it's more like the minimum range works like any of the other range bands. So as soon as you drop out of short range into minimum range, you start taking a penalty. And that penalty just gets worse from there.
So a really good example of this is the LRM. And we'll use the inner sphere LRM because the clan LRM is superior and doesn't have a minimum range. But the IS LRM has a minimum range of 6, a short range band at 7. So essentially, what we used to think is that if you were at 6 hexes from someone, you were still under the short range band. So we thought 7 or 6, you wouldn't experience the penalty because once again, the minimum range was referenced as 6. So we assumed under 6. So because the short range is 7 and the minimum range is 6, it means to avoid a penalty with LRMs, if it's inner sphere, you need to be exactly 7 hexes away. a crazy precision-based weapon, if you think about it, for short range, to be the exact hex count before you experience that penalty. And when you're at that 6 point on the minimum range, let's say you are within the minimum range band, you're taking that penalty, that's when the +1 starts. If you're at 5, +2, 4, +3, etc., etc. It adds up really quick. And honestly, having that extra range band taken away that we used to think was there for LRMs really tightens up that weapon.
But I mean, is a +1 really that big of a deal? I mean, you're already got a gunnery of like 8 or something, so you're not hitting anything anyways. So
yeah, once again, this is assuming that you are playing the 8-0 pilot because you've made the correct tactical decision. So then minimum range doesn't really matter because you exist in minimum range with your melee weapons, baby. Let's go.
But yeah, I don't think this is like, I don't think this is that impactful. You're right that it does make some things feel a little bit tough to use. Like if you're really trying to optimize your range for your LRMs. Really, I think LRMs are probably where it's like the biggest nerf. Maybe like PPCs, because it makes them, a little bit hard to use really up close. But I don't think it's anything that like is too hard to play around.
Yeah, it's just, I think, a common mistake. It's one of those things that I see a lot at the table, and it's something that slipped past us for a while. And it's funny, I don't know why I always thought that minimum meant 3 to 6, like 3 counted down, because it's an inverse way to look at the range bands. How it's written is exactly sort of how they're represented, because the penalty should start when you... Oh, wait, actually, it is a little bit inverse, right? Because if you're shooting to short, the penalty doesn't start till you're over 7. And when it's minimum, you'd think it would start when you're under 6.
Well, I think that's because you're sort of thinking about it wrong. Basically, each range band has a penalty associated with it. So up to long range, you have the long range penalty. Up to medium range, you have the medium range penalty. Up to short range, you have 0 penalty. And up to minimum range, you have the minimum range penalty. Bit weird because the minimum range penalty changes. You sort of just want to be like, oh, well, I'll take my current distance minus the minimum range, and that will give me what the penalty is. Or I guess vice versa if you don't want to have to deal with negative numbers. Forget it. You sort of think that you can just subtract them to get what your penalty is, but it's not quite that. It's more that minimum range is a range band the same way short, medium, and long are. So it's a bit weird. I don't think I've ever been caught by this, but that's just because people have corrected me every time I would have made the mistake. I definitely would have made this mistake, though.
It's a mistake that I see very, very commonly at the table. So I don't know. As you say, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it as in this is a designated range band. Each designated range band in it has a specific penalty associated with it. Makes a lot more sense to look at it that way. I was sort of looking at it, in a stranger fashion. But regardless, the impact for this is, it's just a little bit harder to shoot. And it just makes LRMs in particular much more particular in how you use them. Yeah.
100% more particular.
100% more particular. Yes, that's a good way to think of it, Michael. It makes your particle projector cannon a particular projector cannon. Keep that in your head. That's a good little like a mnemonic.
Nice Thanks for clearing things up.
There
David.
you go. So remember that. Lock that in, people. It's a particular projector cannon, not a particle projector cannon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. And that's all we have for you today.
This is Professor Michael presenting The Sphere We Live In. The radium sniper rifle is a non-standard weapon developed in the early days of the Taurian Concordat. Notoriously, it was rumored to have been involved in the assassination of a Star League admiral. The barrel of this weapon uses a microscale particle accelerator to project a mass of radium isotopes towards the target. As the projectile nears the calculated range of the target, a secondary laser ignites behind the projector cartridge, directly following the path of the projectile and passing through the particle cloud. The laser is intended to burn through armor, clothing, and dermal layers just before the radioactive payload arrives, allowing for rapid absorption of the compound directly into the bloodstream. The weapon is, however, excessively temperamental, as the timing of the laser must be exact based on the range to the target and materials they are wearing. An early or too long burn time will cauterize the wound before the particles arrive, while a burn time too late or too short means the particles will harmlessly accumulate on the skin or clothing. While some Taurian intelligence teams still train with the weapon, most mercenary users report it only being useful against the frail and infirm. Perhaps those with skin conditions. Now you know about the sphere we live in.
Tertiary objective. Stories of the Inner Sphere segment. Initiating.
In Studios, International Zone, Solaris 7, 29 August 3057. When I need to recharge after a long fight with my crew, I reach for the one and only Coolant Flush. It's the only sports drink you'll find in my cockpit's fridge. Tried lying at its absolute best. And cut! Great job, Ace! The director of this latest commercial for my sports drink endeavor slapped me on the back and issued orders to wrap production. Behind him, in my chair, sitting next to my business partner for more than a decade, was my lady friend Tanya. She hopped out and gave me a very welcome embrace. We got about 30 minutes before you have to meet that prospect at the stables. I'm sure she'll make the cut. Relax, Tanya, I told her. I'll return your MechWarriors safe and sound. This is a garrison and training contract I'm taking, not hardcore combat. Tanya scoffed. It could be worse. Getting that glorified beer fridge in my cockpit was a bloody mess for a simple security job. Did I ever tell you about that? Only about 100 times. Tanya's eyes rolled, realizing she was about to hear number 101. Bureau of Star League Affairs, BSLA, Dig Site 7. Anywhere. Lyran Commonwealth, 30 December 3044. I didn't mind keeping out of the War of 3039. Really, the whole thing felt like Hans Davian's midlife crisis, and I felt the same way when he married Melissa Steiner. Still, the face of warfare seemed to be changing to large unit actions, and while the great houses were sucking up contracts for large mercenary units left and right, it created a vacuum for independent contractors like myself who wanted to make some money as far away from the largest battlefront since the Maris coup as possible. And that's exactly what I did, finding myself working for a seemingly minor archaeological firm on a planet aptly named Anywhere. I spent most days sitting pretty in my neon pink Panther and looking tough, so locals knew to stay clear of the city they'd abandoned more than 2 centuries ago. Coming along for the ride was Marisa Frost, a Federated Sons-born Indie, and Alejandro Cortez, a freeworlder with a thick Spanish accent. I only knew the two as fellow lovers of liquor and poker in a Galatian tavern before scooping them up under the pretense of having nothing better to do. This would end up becoming a habit as the years went on, and the responsibilities piled up. But my yet-to-be-named mercenary lance only existed as a registry number at the time. While most archaeological digs pillaging Star League goods focused on military ventures, this operation was more academic in nature, and had had some success with sites related to the massive bureaucracy of the Star League. Even my technician, Andrew Severin, was taken in. When he wasn't making sure my Panther's coolant was deionized, he could be found pillaging sealed boxes of files for our employer.
Ace, is your shift almost up?
Severin chimed in over my radio.
Got something to show you.
I got about 15 more minutes before Frost takes over,
I replied.
What you got, Andy?
We hit an actual lost tech cache. You gotta see this.
Those 15 minutes before Marisa's Stinger moved to replace me on the outer perimeter were some of the longest in my life. When the prospects of honest-to-God lost tech comes up, even an old cynic like me turns romantic. This massive office complex, a relic of the Bureau of Star League Affairs, shouldn't contain any battle mechs or even top-of-the-line tanks. But even vintage office supplies with a camera and star would be invaluable to the right collector. After parking my mech in the outer campsite and locking it down, I ran into the building. Most of the rubble in the collapsed side of the building had been cleared away. The excavated room was a typical office park, though the desktop computer terminals looked reasonably intact, albeit dust-caked. Next to each computer was an empty chair, and what was unmistakably a neuro helmet next to it. "Ace," Severin called out. "This looks like a Star League Defense Force recruitment station. These stations are for hat tests. The terminals and servers below are a gold mine for the eggheads." He picked up one of the centuries-old neuro helmets. "It's funny, even this garbage used for testing MechWarrior potential is better than some of the garbage we use today." Severin tossed the helmet down on the desk, the thud alerting an academic who wailed about invaluable fines and taking damage out of our pay. "Now, for the best part." Severin pointed to a machine in the corner coated in dust and grime. I wiped off the top of the cabinet with my sweat rag. The name Coolant Flush was revealed in bright neon pink lettering. The entire fridge was checkerboarded in that pink and blue color that was a worse assault on the senses than my Panther's paint job. "It's a refrigerator?" I replied to Severin's sense of glee. "No, Ace," Severin replied, slapping my shoulder like a big brother. "It is the refrigerator." Taking my blank expression as permission to continue, he said, "Coolant Flush was an insanely popular sports soft drink during the Star League days. Apparently, they got an official sponsorship from the SLDF. These machines were everywhere after the reunification war. The company ceased to exist after the fall of the Star League." Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the refrigerator. Inside, I found several dozen glass bottles holding a greenish-yellow concoction vaguely reminiscent of BattleTech coolant. What did this dreck taste like? "Vaguely citrus, but mostly just raw sugar. What was really neat is the strontium-based additives that were supposed to enhance electrolyte absorption. It's what makes the liquid glow. Did the same to your piss." "And people still drank it?" I said gingerly, replacing the bottle. I didn't want to admit it, but I'd been insanely curious about trying it until that last part. "Are you kidding? You know MechWarriors. They'd hold drinking contests to see how luminescent they could make their urine." Realizing I was looking at him with bafflement, he answered my unspoken question. "I've been collecting Coolant Flush memorabilia for years, but to have bottles of the actual stuff in it? It's better than Lumiere the Coolant Flush Lancelot action figure." "Hey, Doc," I asked over the whine of tools and generators. "You guys interested in this?" Severin's eyes lit up at the prospect of claiming the relic. "We're here for Star League relics, not soda fountains," one of the academics shouted in between jackhammer bursts. "You figure out how to haul it out of here? You can have it." I left Severin to figure out how to get the refrigerator into our tiny personal cargo allotment on the dropship. BSLA Dig Site 7, Anywhere, Lyran Commonwealth, 6 October 3044. A week had passed in relative quiet, something that never bothered me. Once news of the Lost Tech find got out, minor as it was, the dig site became a lot more popular with the locals. While wildcatters trying to carry off anything not bolted down were always a problem, it was the cottage industry of food trucks, newscasters, local academics, and country bumpkins looking for something exciting that was the real problem. Every day, it seemed like our perimeter was getting tighter and tighter as locals wanted a closer look at the mysterious, life-changing artifacts that were bound to be unveiled. Finally, some began pushing past the foot security teams and sneaking into the building, or filing into the day labor teams to have a look. Some of the latter surely had some spies from the political power du jour in them, but that was not my problem. My problem was getting the unwashed masses to get the hell back on their side of the line, without killing anyone. If a lack of concern over civilian casualties or property damage had been in effect, well, I wouldn't have taken the job, 'cause I'm not a monster. But more to the point, my Panther with its particle projectile cannon would have been more than up to the task. Heck, Frost's Stinger or Cortez's Vulcan could have given the onlookers more than enough to think about. As it stood, though, our 3 battle mechs had to push back nearly 100 people who were making the eggheads uncomfortable about the security of their find. That meant hot searchlights from our mechs played over the crowd all day and night as the 3 of us stood vigil. When the server farm was finally unearthed and needed to be transported, however, that meant we needed to push the poor, hapless idiots back. For some reason, the other 2 MechWarriors decided I was the commander of the Lance, so it fell on me to play police mech.
Attention anywhere, citizens.
I said into my helmet mic, which piped my voice to my Panther's booming external speakers.
Please disperse. We will be moving camp shortly and need space cleared for our equipment.
It wasn't the complete truth, but it was simple enough that everyone could understand. Several people stepped forward and began yelling directly at my mech.
I cannot hear you from there,
I said, rolling my eyes.
Please make way for our heavy equipment.
As if on cue, a diesel engine roared to life and a heavy truck hauling several construction exoskeletons and dumpsters crawled toward the perimeter. 10 tons of flatbed truck, plus its trailer of literal garbage made life a bit too real for most people, and they dispersed without pause. But some began holding up signs claiming the site belonged to the planet. My life was suddenly going to become much more complicated. BSL Dig Site Base Camp Anywhere, Lyran Commonwealth, 7 October 3044. Things came to head so fast after that small show of force that we were ordered to stop all work on the find. Some hipsters were so pissed off about it that they tried to sue both the planetary government and our employers, who turned out to be the hypermassive archaeological firm Interstellar Expeditions. I'm no lawyer, but the entire case seemed to hinge on those neural helmets used for MechWarrior candidacy tests, and whether they constituted a civil or military find. With express orders from the planetary governor to stand down until the issue was litigated, we 3 merry MechWarriors had nothing to do but sit in the base camp's lounge and watch daytime Tri-D. Unfortunately, every local station had been taken over by the news of the day. Us.
The fact of the matter is that this find and the contents therein are the property of the planet and its people.
Some stuffy-looking academic with the local university council was saying at a podium in the courtroom.
Our governor took for granted that there would be nothing of value and pocketed the sea bills of these off-worlders without a second thought. The University of Anywhere demands access to the site so we can at least establish what is there and renegotiate the dig contract.
The crowd of bumpkins applauded as the professor placed her arms on her hips and enjoyed the limelight. A representative from the dig team spoke next.
Your Honors, representatives of Comstar, the dig contract was negotiated in good faith, and it included a list of what we expected to find. You will find the itinerary in Lot 7B of the Discovery. Furthermore, our contract stipulates that both the planetary government and the Lyran Commonwealth are entitled to copies of whatever computer data we can find, in addition to the 100,000 sea bills paid to the planetary government up front. We have upheld our contract to the letter, and will continue to do so.
Well, this is gonna go pear-shaped fast,
Frost said. She walked over to Severin's recently moved refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of 300-year-old soda.
Life always gets complicated when Lost Tech is involved.
I held a hand on top of the soda bottle before she could unscrew it. You really gonna drink that? She smiled.
Why not?
'Cause it's older than all 3 of us put together and mildly radioactive. Cortez chimed in. And probably flat and warm. I added. Give you 5 sea bills to do it, Cortez continued. 10 if you chase it with some habanero sauce from the MRE tins we found. Boredom was setting in hard among the staff, and a few archaeologists turned their gaze at Frost. At least that garbage is edible, one laborer shouted. Couldn't pay me enough to drink that.
Severin interrupted the conversation, snatching the bottle from Frost's hand.
I got plans for this stuff,
he said, placing the bottle back in the fridge.
No one is sipping anything. What the hell's wrong with you?
I thought we weren't allowed to take it with us anyway, with all the computers and whatnot, I said.
I'm working on it. I got an idea. The problem is I'm not gonna transport this thing while it's still loaded with refrigerant.
Why would that be an issue? I asked.
These things used a modified system like the one in your coolant vests,
Severin said.
It even used BattleMech grade coolant as a gimmick. Horribly expensive, but it lent an air of authenticity.
And since mech coolant is both moderately corrosive and toxic as hell, I assume just ripping out the heatsink below it is a bad idea?
Oh yeah, unless you're wearing a Teflon-coated rubber suit. You do not want this spraying all over you,
said Severin. Oh, so that's all the slimy goop eating the concrete floor. One of the eggheads piped up from across the repurposed break room. That tank's probably empty. You can sever the lines and move it wherever you want. Severin waved in thanks and muttered.
Well, there's one less thing. All this time, I thought it just lacked power.
BSLA Dig Site Base Camp Anywhere. Lyran Commonwealth, 9 October 3044.
Fellow citizens of Anywhere,
the governor began.
Given the extreme importance of the find unearthed by interstellar expeditions and their continued unwillingness to renegotiate the contract, I've elected to mobilize the Anywhere militia and nationalize the site. The militia and law enforcement will be moving in to take over security for the dig site while Interstellar Expeditions continues their work under direct supervision of the governor's office. This mobilization began 27 hours ago and will be fully in place tonight.
I just stared at the Tri-D screens as the entire camp seemed to erupt in activity.
Like I said,
Frost muttered while wrapping her coolant vest around her torso.
Pear-shaped.
No kidding, I replied. Cortez, you and Frost get mobile and move out a half click from the camp. I'll secure the camp itself. Be ready to reposition as the eggheads need it. Without waiting for an acknowledgement, I went over to the dig lead, a man whose name I'd never bothered to learn. We expected this to happen, he said to his team. Fortunately, the data backups are done and secured. We can disconnect power to the servers at will. Unbolt as many as you can from the ground and load them up. Grab as many neural helmets as you can carry. The diggers and techs dispersed like ants on a mission. The dig lead approached me. We've no idea what will be thrown at us, Darwin. You and the other 2 MechWarriors are our only heavy equipment. Can you cover us? Truth be told, I had no idea. And given we could be going up against a combined battalion at worst, my answer should have been a resounding no. But an employer never wants to hear that. Keep to the evacuation plan, I told them. Remember, these people want the treasure intact. Were it up to me, I'd leave some tidbits behind for them to chew on. The professor nodded. The terminals and onboard data should be enough to satisfy them. We'll be moving out southeast, away from the city and the local garrison. The dropship will be waiting for us, about 30 kilometers from here. Then we make it happen, if you'll excuse me. I nodded and ran to my Panther. A lack of mech bay meant it was standing in the open with joints locked and a chain ladder leading up to the cockpit. I grabbed the bottom and pressed a button on the side, which retracted the ladder without making me climb up. In less than 5 minutes, I was strapped in and hot, the mech responding to controls.
Cortez, Frost, anything on scope?
I called out.
Negative, Ace.
Cortez replied.
Approach from the garrison is clear.
I see one Sierra Mike and several vehicles.
Frost said.
Looks like law enforcement trucks.
I let out a sigh of relief. If the governor was only sending out local police and a security mech, it meant he wanted to avoid a firefight. A show of force like this was meant to get the eggheads to stand down and cooperate, but they didn't count on the likes of 3 battle mechs willing to stand in their way.
Hold fire. Frost, Cortez, swing around and make yourselves visible on the flank. I'll head to the highway entrance to the site. They don't pose a threat to the 3 of us, and they should know it.
In 30 minutes, the police force, complete with the bulbous security mech, stopped on the road in front of our 3 battle mechs. The security mech pilot tried to be a hotshot and pointed their weapons at us. While the lasers might be a problem, we were well out of effective range from the machine gun in the security mech's opposite arm. I also spotted a missile pod on the shoulder with doors open. While nothing so sophisticated as a target lock would come from that diesel-powered monstrosity, the pod was armed and ready to fire. A diminutive police officer armed with a megaphone and a sour expression stood in front of the convoy.
Interstellar Expeditions, MechWarriors. We are here to assume security duties for this dig site. Power down your battle mechs and exit with your hands on top of your head. Ace, is this guy serious?
Asked Frost, choking back a laugh.
Afraid so.
I replied.
How are we supposed to dismount without using our hands?
Cortez asked.
If we were actually going to dismount, we'd have to figure that out.
I said and keyed my external speakers.
Officer, sorry I didn't get your name. My crew and I will be more than happy to escort you to the dig site in about, say, an hour? The IE crew are packing up and leaving as we speak. The dig will be all yours at that point. There's no need for violence.
Unacceptable. We are here to account for the entire dig site. Stand aside now.
I can't do that, sir. I'm acting on a mercenary review board registered contract to secure this site for interstellar expeditions. If I let you in, I will be in breach.
Keeping this pencil neck talking worked, and I trusted my people to be absolutely professional. What I did not count on was a pencil pusher cop to have no patience.
Graph, fire!
He shouted through the megaphone. The rounded security mech belched a pair of missiles from its shoulder launcher, and at the same time, Cortez and Frost immediately opened up on the helpless machine. Oh hell, I muttered. I slammed my feet on the Panther's jump jet's pedals and arced the mech behind the police line. The security mech crumpled under the weight of laser and autocannon fire. Meanwhile, police officers were scrambling out of their vehicles, taking up positions and firing their useless service pistols and shotguns at our battle mechs. The impact of my Panther's 35 tons landing so close to the dismounted officers staggered most of them. I then pulled the Panther's leg back and delivered a swift kick to the security mech, ensuring it was knocked down hard enough to not be shot at anymore.
Cortez, Frost, hold your fire, damn it!
I shouted just as a shotgun blast smeared lead across my cockpit canopy. Frost objected.
They shot at us. That security mech was fair game.
I saw the yellow-green riot gas pouring from a dent in her Stinger's torso, and realized how underprepared these Keystone cops were to deal with full battle mechs. They were still firing hollow-point bullets and double-aught buckshot from a seemingly unlimited supply.
Why are they still shooting?
Cortez asked, calm as a morning breeze over the clangs and ricochets of incoming fire.
We pasted their riot mech.
As God is my witness, I think I heard the police captain screaming, "Stop resisting," through his megaphone.
Relax.
I told my lancemates.
I'll get the point across.
I lifted the Panther's leg and stomped hard on the security mech's hip, crushing the commercial-grade armor plate and actuator to ensure it would be unable to get up again. I walked my mech, casually, among the police officers back to my original position, and the gunfire finally stopped.
You done?
I asked over my external speakers.
Or are you going to charge battle mechs with billy clubs next?
The police captain raised his megaphone again.
This isn't over. The people of Anywhere do not respond well to thuggery.
And we do not respond well to intimidation.
I replied, raising my PPC and pointing it at the SWAT van. I waited for the driver to run from the cab before slagging the cop's ride home.
I don't want to have this conversation again, officer.
The other two police trucks erupted as Cortez and Frost followed suit. With no heavy equipment or transportation, the police officers turned around and walked away.
MechWarrior Darwin, respond, please.
Go ahead, Doc.
Things are more serious on our evac route. Spotters see armor in a large battle mech. I don't know what type.
Running my Panther across the now abandoned campsite took long enough that the planetary militia was able to interdict the convoy of trucks, at least by firing across their route. The platoon of light tanks was still half a click away, but that was more than close enough to destroy the server-laden movers if they wanted. And to say nothing of that battle mech, the 65-ton CDR-3R Crusader was dirt common in the Lyran Commonwealth. Missiles for days across its arms and hips meant it could plaster the entire convoy in a single volley, and its armor was denser than on some assault mechs. I reached out to the dig lead over the comms.
Sir, I honestly recommend surrender. That battle mech alone is too big a threat.
We paid you to protect us,
he replied.
We got 2 clicks to the evac point and they don't want to damage us. Just stop us, distract them, and we can make the pickup.
I bruised my palm slapping the bulkhead. I don't mind admitting. Sensors showed about half a dozen light tanks all tracked. I wouldn't be able to tell what type until I got closer.
Frost, Cortez, shred those tank tracks and lock their turrets as best you can.
I called out.
What about you, boss?
Frost called out. I've no idea why suddenly I got to be in charge at this point, but in a crisis, someone had to give direction.
We've got to distract that Crusader, and I'm the only one who can realistically threaten it,
I said, simultaneously raising the Panther's PPC arm and guiding the targeting reticle over the big mech's chest.
Go!
Squeezing the trigger and unleashing an azure bolt of energy. This was not the wisest fight I'd ever picked, and the pilot of that baby blue heavy mech agreed. The Crusader's arms belched fire as I rammed my throttle forward to try getting ahead of the missiles raining down. Fortunately, like most militia-caliber MechWarriors, the Crusader pilot was inexperienced. If they were also under orders to interdict and not destroy their opposition, then all the better for me. Dirt and rock geysered around where my Panther used to be while I zigzagged and lined up another shot with the PPC. This time, I missed, nearly clipping the Crusader's foot.
Boss, Ace,
Severin called out through the radio.
I need your help.
I answered in between missiles impacts pinging my Panther's left arm.
Doing the best I can, Andy.
You and the nerds will be home free.
I'm still at base camp, boss. The fridge, we need to get it out of here.
What the actual hell?
I shouted as though I was berating him in person for his stupidity, which said nothing to the fact that missile volley number 3 was now raining down and peppering my legs.
No time to explain it, boss. Just pick me in the fridge up. We need it.
Cursing in a manner of sailors and comedians around the sphere, I unleashed another PVC bolt that hit the Crusader just right on its side and slammed my jump jets. I leaned my body to the left, hoping my neuro helmet and the gyroscope in the Panther's guts would adopt my overcompensating posture. 35 tons of battle mech landed on one foot and stumbled like a drunk who missed a step down the stairs. Fortunately, I was able to keep my balance, so I ran as fast as possible back to the campsite. Luck or poor judgment was with me as the Crusader broke from the passing convoy to pursue me. I could see on my multifunction display that the maneuver had given Cortez and Frost the opening to rush the light tanks and get the convoy moving. Even with my half-kilometer head start, the Crusader still harassed me. Long-range missiles exploded around me as I sprinted as hard as the mech could go, putting every ounce of energy into keeping the Panther moving. By the time I got to the camp, I saw Severin waving a flare right next to the accursed appliance. I had half a mind to crush it underfoot. I didn't, of course. Instead, I knelt, picked Severin up with the Panther's free hand, and brought him up to the mech's shoulders. As much as I wanted him in danger of being crushed for dragging me back, I wasted precious seconds to depressurize the cockpit and give him access to the rumble seat behind me.
If you want to be silly rich, we need that fridge, he said. I crammed all sorts of blankets and paper and stuff to pad the bottle so your mech can carry it. Just don't get your arm shot off.
I liked the idea of being silly rich, but getting out of the Crusader's line of fire came first. The matter became more practical when some short-range missile struck my Panther's back and forced my still kneeling mech to stagger, the left hand nearly crushing the fridge. Well, since I'm here now, I said, and grabbed the appliance. Heedless of the pressure I might be putting on it, viscous green coolant poured out of the torn conduit as I separated the refrigerator from its impractical cooling system. Getting the Panther to its feet and turning around,
I saw a gaping, smoldering hole in the Crusader's right side where I'd hit it previously. Lasers and machine gun volleys were pouring from its arms, bracketing me on either side. Whether it wanted to intimidate me into stopping, or just couldn't hit the broad side of a barn, I didn't care. I lined up the master target interlock circuit and jammed the trigger. Both the PPC and the yet unused SRM rack filled that smoking hole with rage and fury. The Crusader staggered forward as its right arm exploded. Whatever ammunition stored there touched off from my assault. Not waiting to see how well that would stop the pilot, I rammed my throttle forward. If I kept the Panther going flat out, I could scratch about 70 kilometers per hour, which meant I could catch up to the convoy in about 5 minutes. Mule-class dropship, Guglielmo Marconi. Anywhere. Lyran Commonwealth, 11 October, 3044. Frost, Cortez, Severin, and I finally cracked open some bottles of what I was assured was well-sealed and completely safe coolant flush, after they had been properly refrigerated overnight. "Here's to victory, kids," I told my lancemates. "Good job on those tanks." "Speak for yourself, boss," Cortez replied, blowing on the smoky, chilled air of his own bottle. "Both our mechs lost an arm in the bargain."
And because we actually had to fight, we'll be indemnified for the damage,
Frost countered.
Maybe you can even upgrade your Vulcan to that laser boat version Hans Davian loves so much. I know I want to get my hands on one of those wolfhounds.
We didn't make that much money, Frost. I laughed, noticing we were all holding our bottles but no one had sipped yet. So, who's going first? Thrust-induced gravity won't last forever. Almost at once, the four of us sipped, and almost at once, we all spat the wretched stuff out. Ugh! Battery acid, high fructose corn syrup, and piss! I choked out.
Oh God! Ugh. Why is it chunky like gelatin?
Frost moaned. Cortez was muttering something in Spanish that was both unrecognizable and hilarious sounding. Even Severin was retching into his sick bag.
I guess the seal didn't keep him from aging poorly. Ugh.
After tying off his bag, he wiped his mouth and pulled a large ditty bag onto the lounge table in front of us.
I can still use the rest to recreate the recipe, maybe even perfect it. In the meantime, I have a present for all of you. The real reason I needed you to come back for the fridge, Ace.
Keep in mind that I came back for you, but continue. Severin opened the bag and pulled out 3 pristine neurohelmets from the dig site. The one he handed to me had a stamp on it that looked like one of those funny racing dogs.
Heh, a whippet, Cortez said. Had one of those as a pet when I was a kid.
So I assume these are part of our personal cargo allotment? I asked Severin.
The dig team was focused on the computers, but I figured these things would be worth a mint. I crammed as many as I could in my bag and stashed a few more in the fridge. These 3 are for you, and I'll get them tuned up tomorrow. The rest? Well, I want to see if I can reverse engineer them and sell the tech. You can't tell me the MechWarriors of the Inner Sphere won't want lighter, better neural helmets.
Frost raised her bottle of undrinkable soda.
I will certainly drink to that.
Union-class dropship Yu Huang, Shangdi, Solaris 7, 29 August 3057. So that's how I became a partner in my buddy's combination soda empire and tech conglomerate. Tanya snorted at the old story while the rest of my team gawked in disbelief. So if you got all the money coming in from that, why do you still do mercenary work? Why take this new contract? The recruit said. Well, it'd be boring to just sit back and count the money. Besides, I tend to spend it as fast as I make it.
Ain't that the truth?
Tanya interjected.
He often relies on merc work and the friends he makes on the way to keep himself out of trouble.
One thing I don't get, our recruit said. You had a personal cargo limitation. How'd you get to keep the fridge? Oh, that. Well, Andy and I removed the emergency rescue hatch and elbow greased it to the space where the rumble seat, survival locker, and privy are.
Damn near had to disassemble the cockpit to get it back out. I got a miniature one now serving as a beer fridge in the same spot. Tanya rolled her eyes. You are full of it, Ace. You know that? Not the first time I've been told that, I replied with a smile on my face.
This has been Ace Darwin and the Battle of the Beer Fridge, written by James Bixby and found in Shrapnel issue 8. Remember to check out Shrapnel, the official BattleTech magazine, for when you are craving more short stories in the BattleTech universe. And that brings us to an end of another deployment of BungleTech. And what a long deployment it was. A quick apology again for this taking so long, but oh boy, was that more complicated than we expected. As always, you can find us via Discord, email, Twitter, and now Patreon, all linked in the description. And to those honorable Patreon supporters, your support means the inner sphere to us. Also, a quick reminder, if you haven't had a chance to throw us a review yet, please do. It really helps spread the bungling word. Until next time, MechWarriors. Good fortunes on the battlefield. Selah.
All podcast objectives complete. Podcast shutdown sequence initiated.